Pajo Gobind Pool mat jah मानस जन्म का एही लाह भजो गोबिंद फूल मत जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद फूल मत जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह
As this is a significant topic, I've been asked on the several emails and texts to go into some sort of detail about karma, just for the record, because there's nothing online so complete or anywhere that anybody can read about how it all works. So please forgive the little introduction that I'm going to have to speak and read a little bit as well, some quotes. And then we can go on to the mainstream questions. So let's begin. Welcome, friends, to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That's further supported by the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of Sant today. Now this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, or path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representative of the Supreme Lord even today. And although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere true seeker can easily recognize that this noble path or true way encompasses all true faiths and beliefs as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centres or YouTube channel, as well as in the Holy Discourse series of ISTAuk.com. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTA for short, and although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Savan Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. Now our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially for the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. Yet this high teaching is not new. It is the age-old path of true spirituality, known today as the holy truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religious or philosophical teachings that we all know of. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religion and mass philosophy are only there to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion. Therefore, our mission here today is simple: to impart the very highest truth of the Supreme Lord to those who wish to know, with all the love, grace and wonder that such a gift entails. Now for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Sant, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself and the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life and creation for the modern age. I humbly speak, therefore, as one who has been gifted with true knowledge of that high truth, and as one who lives in the Supreme Lord's will. Thus I offer my humble demonstration and knowledge to all who seek the same. Now, as a friend on this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form and instead listen to and take heed of the loving message that the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above the given karmic role to become truly noble once again by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom direct from the true Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth. In this way, I am a humble servant and a perfect friend, whom the true Lord has gifted with direct knowledge of the holy truth, which I have been asked to share with you. So although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely, by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Now, for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual queries within 48 hours of receipt, but please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and sheer number of inquiries. So thank you, and let's now begin with the question and answer session from the true seekers as well as the audience.
Thank you. The theme again is, what is the law of karma and how does it actually work? I've got a few questions related to the specific law of karma. First question, and this question could take a long time to answer, but there's quite a few questions to go.
Yes.
What is the law of karma and what does it mean in truth?
Okay, well, as I said in the introduction, this is a big question, and so to do it justice requires a big answer. Hence, I will give a short talk on all aspects of this important topic of what actually is karma and how does it work or operate here, before answering more specific questions. Indeed, the actual truth of the matter regarding the law of karma is far more fascinating than the human explanations and cultural myths that we see today, even those portrayed by well-meaning individuals using limited human explanation. You see, universal, natural or karmic law, as it is variously known among different cultures, operates under very specific and consistent divine laws. But what actually is meant by the law of karma, and how does it truly relate to us in everyday life? Well, let's see what is meant by the law of karma and how does it truly relate to everything. Let's explain that now first. The universal cosmic law was first created at the manifestation of the lower, meaning 0 to second realm of creation itself, and simply refers to the observed law of cause and effect, which none can escape, no matter who they are, deity, angel, demon, or human. None can escape. This is an important point. It operates everywhere, from the basic laws in science to the principles of philosophy, from the well-known laws of religion to the precept rules of true spirituality, and from the observed results of our everyday life and everyday choices to the understanding of life's golden rule, what goes around comes around, which everyone would have heard of at some point. Thus, it cannot be denied by any rational human being. It can only be understood or misunderstood. What all this simply means is that absolutely nothing in this world happens accidentally or coincidentally. There is a reason behind everything, though it may not be so clear to us at that time. Only our attitude to it all is in our hands. Furthermore, as karmic law governs everything that occurs in lower creation, without exception, it is naturally referred to in all holy scriptures past and present as the governing law, though often given different names. For example, I'm going to quote from the various religions to show how they all are aligned in this view and understanding, even if they use different terminologies and references. So, for example, in the Christian Holy Bible, it is simply referred to as the law. Or to quote this law, it says, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every intention, every deed to be judged. Because this is the law of judgment in the Christian religion. Then regarding the role of the Holy Masters in all this, Jesus says, do not think that I have come to destroy the law, meaning the law of karma, or the prophets, the teachings of the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill and to demonstrate. So it's an important point. Then also, the Bible describes the exact detail of karmic law by the words of the lex talionis text, which simply says this in very, very human terms of the age. Life for a life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, or give to Caesar, meaning the creditor, because Caesar at the time was the ultimate creditor of the region, what is due to Caesar, and to God what is due to God, meaning of yourself spiritually. Indeed, the whole moral code of Jesus' teaching emphasizes having only good intentions towards others, no matter how they are portrayed by the worldly minded, while forgiving others, even your enemies, for they know not what they do, and will have to account for themselves before the Almighty Lord, regardless. It is not for you to account for the Lord's will, for that is just ego, which bears its own consequences. So Jesus is very clear about that. Meanwhile, one should do unto others as you would have done unto you, and so on. So many quotes in the Bible referring to this. Furthermore, Jesus says regarding one's day-to-day life, he says, therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, for you are more than life, you are more than the body. So this is Jesus' account for karma, when people were stressing to him all the time, I'm having this problem, I'm having that problem, what should I do? So he was a liberator, and they were querying him about their daily concerns, which are just a matter of daily living. So he tried to make a big point about this. And he later goes on to add, regarding one's priorities in life, but seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all his righteousness, and all these things of the world, meaning food, clothing, shelter, etc., shall be added unto you of themselves according to the law. Then, most importantly, for disciples of the truth, Jesus continues by saying, if you forgive others their wrongs, then your heavenly Father will forgive you yours. But if you do not forgive others their wrongs, then your heavenly Father will not forgive you yours. Quite clear. Meaning you will have to come back to this world of strife and struggle to account for yourself, or to another place less desirable. Jesus then later elaborates by saying, for if you judge, so shall ye be judged, and by your measure, so shall ye be measured, and so on, which all shows just how karma, or the law, works in Christianity. Then Jesus completes by famously saying, how shall it profit a man if he should gain the whole world but lose his soul, regarding one's true objective or purpose in life? Meanwhile, in Islam, things are a little different. Islam doesn't actually teach directly about transmigration of the soul from life to life, but instead talks about the connection between our deeds and our futures, as stated clearly in the Holy Quran, which is the Islamic Bible, and in the Hadith, the sayings of the Prophet second to the Quran. The Quran makes it clear that we will be rewarded for our good deeds and punished for our sins, but not necessarily during our earthly life. Allah, the Islamic God of the first realm, is said to hold us responsible for our evil deeds, while remembering our righteous deeds. Therefore, the righteous ones will earn blessings in this life, and infinitely more in life hereafter, while sinners will go to the Islamic hell. For example, in the Quran it says, "And for every person we," meaning Allah's angels and servants, "have imposed their fate upon their head. And we, Allah's angels and servants, will produce for them, on the day of reckoning, a record which they will see spread before them as proof." Now, from this understanding, there is clearly no room for mercy or forgiveness here. Only justice on Judgment Day. The Quran repeats this theme many times, with many examples, telling us that the fate of the unbeliever or the non-spiritual is far from rosy. It further says that we must be careful observers of our deeds, by saying, "Similar situations as yours have passed on before you." So proceed throughout life to observe how it was in the end for those who denied the rule of Allah. And again it says, "We, Allah's servants and angels, rained upon them a rain of stones," referring to Sharia tribal law, which was the law of the age in retribution. How it was in the end for the criminals, meaning transgressors of the law. So these very simple language to explain things. The Quran goes on to say, whatever you have indeed will end, but what Allah has is lasting. And we, Allah's angel servants, will surely give those who were patient their just reward according to their good deeds. Clear referring here to the law of karma, without saying so. Furthermore, the Quran then says that only humans can earn salvation through good deeds, not animals or plants, which is in line with most religions. Hence, Islam has the concept of kifara, which is a form of worship or forgiveness of sins for humans on earth. Thus, Islam is all about good versus bad deeds, as well as following Islamic rules, the pillars of faith. In a strict sense, the Quran says, "Whoever does a good deed equal to the weight of the minutest particle will see its reward, and whoever does an evil deed equal to the weight of the minutest particle will see its retribution." So it shows you how very detailed is the accounting of our every breath and our every word and our every deed in Islam. So it then goes on to say, God wishes to make his laws clear to you and to guide you towards the righteous ways. He wishes to redeem you. O man, he is all-knowing and all-wise. However, this is not so simple in Islam as it first appears. There are many contrary statements. For example, the Quran also says, "Yet no soul can believe without the permission of God." And Allah has decreed all things from eternity, meaning everything is scripted. It goes on to say, He knows what will happen, when it will happen, how it will happen, and has written it and willed it in the book of decrees from the Al-Hadith. Therefore, nothing shall befall us except what Allah has ordained for us. He is also our protector. Finally, in demonstration of the fact that we have no free will, Islamic scriptures say, "No calamity befalls on the earth or in yourselves, except what is inscribed in the book of decrees before we, bring it into existence, in order that you may not grieve over the things that you fail to get, nor rejoice over that which has been given to you. Verily, that is easy for Allah. So whilst the concept of reincarnation and transmigration is not seemingly presented in mainstream Islamic literature, the rule of karma, or judgment, or cause and effect certainly is. Now, in Buddhism, karma refers to all thoughts and deeds driven by satana, meaning intention, where those intentions or desires, even if unfulfilled and not withdrawn, will become the determining factors in the kind of life one will experience after death, in addition to the joy and misery one may experience in this lifetime as a consequence. So karma, or doing, and karma phala, means retribution, are fundamental concepts in Buddhism and are central to the Buddhist law of karma. The Buddha further explains how intentional actions keeps one tied to rebirth in the cycle of samsara, meaning endless consequential births and deaths. Indeed, in this regard, the Buddha says, when action comes out of nothing, or selflessness, it creates no karma. But also, life is not the mere play of blind chance. It has an existence that is dependent upon conditions, meaning the circumstances of our life story. And when action comes out of intention and desire, then there is karma. So the Buddha emphasized this intention to act as opposed to selflessness, meaning going with the flow, which is a very famous Buddhist concept. Similarly, the Buddha says, surely if living creatures saw the results of their bad deeds, they would turn away from them in disgust. But selfhood, meaning ego, binds them, and they cling to their offensive desires. They crave pleasures for themselves, and they cause pain to others. And when death ends their selfhood or ego, they find no peace, for the thirst for existence abides, and their selfhood or ego reappears in new births. Thus they continue to move in this cycle and can find no escape from the hell of their own making. Then the Buddha boldly explains that no one born in this world, whether holy or unholy, are exempt from karmic law, by issuing his own personal statement, saying this. He explains this further. He says, I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or evil, to that I will fall heir. He then continues with, not even death can wipe out your good or bad deeds, regardless of what we do. Our karma has a hold on us, unless we change. Indeed, repent and seek forgiveness for those who have the true Lord in their life, which is something missing from traditional Buddhism. Now in Hinduism, the concept of karma, or law, cause and effect, is much the same. The scriptures say that karma is the universal law of cause and effect, which holds a person responsible for his or her actions and their fate, both in this life and the next. Therefore, a person's karma is responsible for the good or bad consequences of his or her life. Good actions produce happiness, and bad actions lead to suffering and misery in the present or the next life. So the Hindu scriptures fully declare. And a person's past actions governs their present experiences, and their present actions governs their future experiences. These actions are complex in Hinduism, from your intentions and thoughts to deeds done, to even the purpose of your life, whether you're seeking the truth or not. So from Hinduism, if you don't seek the truth, for example, that's considered to be a negative action. Indeed, this means that every person is, to a certain degree, the creator of his or her own destiny, according to Hindu philosophy. Indeed, Hinduism has a lot to say about karma in all its literature. To quote just some, it says, "The intricacies of karma are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what is karma, action, what is vikarma, forbidden action, and what is akarma, inaction. Just as the young calf is able to recognize its mother from among 1,000 cows, so does karma find the person destined to experience it." This is a Hindu saying. As flowers and fruit of a tree, unurged by visible influences, never miss their proper season, so does karma, done previously, bring about its fruit in proper time. Incidentally, karmic law is God's playful law, according to Hinduism, where it says, "Under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, and according to the result of one's karma, one's soul is made to enter into the womb of drama of a mother. Indeed, everybody, from the heavenly king Indra down to the lowliest insect, is bound by the laws of karma. But one who is wholeheartedly engaged in bhakti yoga, devotion to the true Lord or Holy Master, is an exception." Also, it's how karma serves us. The law of karma acts like a fever. Its retribution purges what is unhealthy in the world, just as a fever in the body burns up harmful disease. And so, after many incarnations of karmic fulfillment, the cleansed one attains the Lord. Yet, one who is so illuminated or enlightened is hard to find. Thus, karma in Hinduism is a relentless illusion that the wise should understand about. Indeed, the scripture says, "How can he who know the true self to be imperishable, birthless, everlasting, and changeless," referring to the soul, "possibly think that the true self, meaning soul, can cause the destruction, death, or harm of any other?" And finally, karma itself has a beginning and an end. To quote again, Brahma utters Om, and the entire universe comes into being for the duration of the sound between O, which is the start, and M, the end. Hence, every little thing is predetermined. Every little thing is karma unfolding. But now, having heard all this, how can one know about all this for oneself? In Hinduism, it says, if you want to understand the law of karma, you have to look beneath the surface of how the universe operates. Indeed, just as a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, so does the fire of true knowledge burn to ashes all karmic reactions. While for those who have mastered their minds, become engrossed in infinite wisdom, they have no further interest in any of the fruits of action. Free thus from the chain of birth and death, sin and virtue, they attain the state beyond sorrow. So does Hindu scriptures say. Now in Sikhism, the matter is a little more advanced. According to Sikh tradition, every action, whether physical or mental, has its own consequence, which must be faced either in this life or in the lives to come, termed pralabdha karma or current karma, or kriyaman karma, which is future karma, respectively, while the store of past karmas is called sinchit or store karmas. So they divide karma into three parts: the current, the future, and the past. The concept of karma, therefore, is linked with the principle of cyclic reincarnation or retribution, and liberating transmigration, salvation of all individuals, and they refer to individuals as jeeves, and of all souls, they refer to as atmas, respectively, all of which follow this divine law or hukum. This is the reason why in pure rather than cultural Sikhism, the teachings say there is no sin, no virtue, only hukum, meaning divine will or law. For example, Guru Nanak Ji, the first Sikh Guru, says this: not even a leaf moves without the Lord's order. Even the leaf is given the order of when to move. And everything is in his hukum, meaning will. Nothing is outside. Then Guru Amar Das Ji, the third Sikh Guru, adds, according to the Lord's command, people perform their actions. They wander around creation, driven by the karma of their deeds. Indeed, the body is the field of karma in this age. Whatever you plant, so shall you harvest. It is therefore to reap the consequence of one's previous lives that an individual self or jiva takes the next birth. But in the process of acting out this consequence, the jiva creates further consequences, chains of actions, that spill over into the next birth, thus setting in motion an endless cycle of birth, deed, death, rebirth. This has been described as the karmic wheel or cycle of alternating births and deaths via the cycle of 8.4 million forms, or 84 lakh, 84 lakh, is as described in the Sikh scriptures, with new karmas keeping the wheel in endless motion, until the chain is broken through the annihilation of karma by the merciful grace of the Supreme Lord, thus liberating the jiva from endless entrapment. So in Sikhism there is no salvation unless a divine holy being or the Supreme Lord intervenes. Indeed, Guru Arjan Ji, the fifth Sikh Guru, says, the whole universe is bound by action, whether discreet means good or discreet bad. Yet sadly, in this dark age of Kali Yuga, no one is interested in good karma, nor in dharmic righteous faith. Thus, Guru Nanak Ji declares in the Japji Sahib verses of the Guru Granth Sahib, which is a Sikh Holy Bible, that all forms and beings, all greatness and lowliness, all pain and pleasure, all bounties and wanderings are subject to the indescribable hukum, will of the Supreme Lord, and so there is nothing outside the realm of hukum. So this is very clear in Sikhism, that we are going through this transmigration of birth after birth according to divine will, and therefore Sikhism doesn't see actions as good or bad, just as actions that either keep you in the cycle or allow you to escape. He then adds that karma determines the form, meaning body or birth, we receive, and that it is through nadar or God's grace alone that one secures the threshold of mukti, liberation. However, Guru Arjan Ji adds that despite all this, there is a way out by saying who is subject to karma and who is beyond karma. Those who chant the holy name and inspire others to chant it escape the trap of karma. And by holy name they talk about the Shabad name, not just a physical name. And again he says, by the karma of past actions, the robe of this physical body is obtained. But by the Lord's grace, the gate of liberation, known as Daswan Dwar, the 10th door, is also found within the human form. Moreover, Guruji says, through many religious rituals, good deeds and dharmic worship, one obtains good karma. But above all of these is Nam, reciting the name of the true Lord. Hence, in the field of action and karma, plant the Lord's true name. Though this opportunity is difficult to obtain, he says, only the sound of the Guru's Shabad within eradicates the karma of millions of past actions, meaning holy meditation. This scripture goes on to say that while the actions of other species are mostly regulated by an instinctive response to environmental stimuli, humankind, endowed with a superior brain, is capable of having a proper understanding of hukum and of choosing a course of actions favourable to progressive spiritual growth, deserving of grace. Human birth, therefore, is a precious gift and a rare chance for the individual wandering soul, or Atma, to realize its high truth and attain liberation. Overall, therefore, Sikhism takes a unique approach to karma and dharma. On one side, when a tsunami comes and 1,000 houses vanish and many are killed or lose their home, then the spiritually aware in Sikhism say that God or nature has done all this for a reason, which is thus hukum, or divine will. While in the same breath, those who had a lucky escape and were spared similarly say this was divine will too. One circumstance may be considered bad, while another is considered good. Yet in reality, both are the will of the Supreme Lord, who created the entire drama of creation via hukum, and each one experiences it all according to their karmas, so meaning that they see either good or bad in the action, rather than the Lord's hukum at play. This is why the subject of hukum, or divine will, is a topic of deep research and debate in Sikhism also. Yet in demonstration of his acceptance of the Lord's will, and in recognition of the illusion of it all, Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Sikh Guru, famously never cried before God that you have killed my mother and my sons, and never cried the same before the emperor, the Mughal emperor of the time, ruler and arch enemy of the Sikhs, who ordered the atrocities. But instead the Guru said this: ever sweet is thy will, O Lord. Let me always stay in your hukum, your will. Thus, everything is done by the will of God. For God, then nothing is good and nothing is bad in reality. That is the essence of the teachings of the Sikh Gurus in reality. Now in Sant Mat, meanwhile, the law of karma is well known, but not well understood. So having now explained the mainstream religious viewpoint, let's examine it more closely. From the higher spiritual point of view, the holy truth of Sant Mat view, meaning, according to Sant Mat, the law of karma is merely a mechanical law of cause and effect, of action and reaction, not of good and bad. Thus, for every action in the form of thought, word or deed that one commits, an equal reaction, never more, never less, will entirely be committed upon us in time. Indeed, so extensive is this rule that, like prisoners, we are trapped and bound to karmic existence in the lower regions of creation, where the law of karma strictly governs our fate, till we are rescued by the merciful Supreme Lord via the Holy Master. Therefore, the law of karma is a law of justice, pure, unbiased, absolute, and inescapable, that operates in the lower karmic realms of creation, meaning the 2nd to 0 realms, which is the causal, up to the causal realm, which in one form or another is commonly known to most religions. However, there is also the law of grace. So Sant Mat introduces the law of grace, which has the power to free us from our karmic bonds. This law can act upon us through the grace of a living holy master, perfect saint and noble mystic, who has the authority and competency to account for these karmas on our behalf. Therefore, the escape from the rule of karma lies in the wisdom and protection afforded by the great holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of our time. They are ultimately beyond karma. Thus their actions are not binding upon them, for their soul works from the 3rd realm level or beyond at a minimum, above the 3 karmic spheres of body, senses and mind forms. They can thus show us the way out, and they can do this by putting us, the individual Jeev, in touch with the sound current of our own soul, Atma. And then, as our attention catches it and rises up, our soul throws off the influences of mind and matter, or it can be done via the unwavering love and devotion to the Holy Master. The more the individual works on these lines, the easier is the path of liberation or salvation for them. Otherwise, the course becomes lengthy. Although the Holy Masters, perfect saints and noble mystics, are pledged to see us through once they have initiated us or spiritually awakened the soul. Indeed, the practice of connecting one's attention with the Shabad or sound current within cuts the link with the rest of us, the rest of one's karma, and the rest of all the attachments of the world. Further to this, the rust of attachments, desires, and impressions upon the mind is removed by our holy mantra repetition, known as Simran, given at the time of spiritual initiation. Indeed, contemplation of the higher truth within replaces our everyday trivial thoughts. Then the mind, instead of wandering outside, begins to find rest and peace within. And as it ventures upward within, the newly empowered soul naturally goes with it. Once Trikuti, top of the second realm, has been crossed, where all karmic accounts are settled, the soul never goes back into the karmic realms of transmigration by force. It will continue to rise up to merge with its origin, the Supreme Lord. Then one simply lets new actions be performed in the name of the Holy Master or True Lord, so that the individual begins working in the capacity of an agent for the Lord, in whatever capacity degree, even for harmless fun activities. All new actions done in this way will not be binding. At the same time, the current life or fate actions will have been met by the time of one's life when it comes to an end, while the reserve store or sinchit karmas will be resolved by one's Holy Master. Now, these sinchit karmas can also be burnt in this lifetime or reduced by one's devotee's spiritual practice, so both go hand in hand. No other life form has this privilege. Even the angels and the gods of the lower realms are not that fortunate. Of the 8.4 million life forms that exist in karmic realms, the privilege of true salvation has only been bestowed upon the human form, by which the truth is to be sought within ourselves. But without the help and assistance of an experienced captain or holy master, we cannot safely navigate the uncharted ocean of life and spirituality. That is the essence of true spirituality or true religion, known as Sant historically and spiritual science today. Now, to quote the saint with no name, the true purpose of human life, which is above all other life forms, is to search for and discover the very truth of life and existence itself, rather than just living through it, like the lower animals have to do. For human beings have already been through all that in their countless former lives. Thus, the time has now come, while living in the human form, to attain the ultimate knowledge and truth of life and existence for oneself. Indeed, while enjoying their higher life as a noble human being, they are designed to also seek the true source of it all, the true meaning of their existence, and the full glory and wonder of creation for themselves, rather than being merely entertained by hearing about it from others, or being lost in the ignorance and struggle of earthly life. That is the role and teachings of the true holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics in every age, who solely come as selfless and merciful saviours of seeking humanity, end quote. So now that we've established what the religions and philosophy have to say, let's take a closer look at exactly how karma works in our everyday life. But first, it must be explained that karma only applies to the adopted mind, meaning character or jiv, of each and every one of us, but not to our soul. The soul is just a powerhouse that enables the drama to take place and acts only as a spectator. So the soul, as a mere spectator, is unharmed through the whole process. Next, it must be understood that only human beings in all of creation can create a new karma. All other beings, whether of the lower forms such as bacteria, plants, insects, animals, etc., or of the higher forms such as angels, demons and deities, etc., who reside within the karmic realms 0 to 2nd, merely exist to pay off their karmic load in a prescripted form, some as antagonists, others as helpers, or those of neutrality. This simple truth is explained by the Holy Masters thus: there are two forms of life in the karmic realms. The first are known as karamjunis, created karma species, which is only found in human beings. And the second are known as borgjunis, paying off karma species, found in all other life forms, including the deities. Of these, around 90% of human beings are not destined for true salvation in this lifetime, but are here to create new karma for themselves, for future births, dramas and experiences. The remaining fortunate few, 10% of all human beings, marked for salvation, are destined to become disciples of a perfect living master at some point in their current life, and it is for them alone that the true spiritual path of Sant and its saints, the holy masters, perfect saints, noble mystics, are created. Regarding the question of how our karmic adventures in lower creation are played out as group experiences, I shall explain that now. For the purpose of fulfilling their given adventures in lower or illusory karmic creation, individual souls incarnate, meaning project themselves en masse together from Satgurus, the supreme kingdom of truth and love, which is our true home, as groups of associates such as family, friends, enemies, colleagues, casual acquaintances, passers-by, kinsmen, etc., so as to take part in creation, the drama of creation. Indeed, these groups are specifically created just to be able to play out illusory dramas as individual interacting characters in the great adventure story they have all chosen to experience in illusory creation, each from an individual viewpoint, which is naturally necessary for the sake of participating in the great play of lower karmic creation. Now, Guru Nanak explains this simply by saying in the Japji Sahib that the entire life story is simply drama staged in a dream. So the dramas are real, but the dream is not. The dramas are real because as you are going through the dramas of life, you believe that they are real. Therefore you take them to be real and act as if they're real. But in actual fact, when you step back, you realize it was all just part of a dream, but only when you wake up from the dream, which is what spirituality teaches us. So this is an important point. Now these groups may number, so these groups of incarnations that come from such Khan, which are projected here, may number from millions to trillions of souls for the whole scheme to work. An individual soul alone cannot operate in any drama or adventure without other characters to play along with. Hence, they incarnate as groups, with each individual taking on a particular role as friend, observer, or antagonist, etc. But why should this occur at all? The answer is simple. It is the nature of the Supreme Lord to want to express its full glory to its fullest extent, to itself, by manifesting souls of its divinity, who then want to enjoy an individual existence separate from the collective whole of oneness with the Supreme Lord, for the sake of participating in the Lord's creation glory. Then, at the end of their collective adventure, all the individuals within that group will eventually begin their personal journey back to their true home, while seeking support from each other, where relevant, of course. But when this change in life direction occurs, it cascades from one to the other, as all these individuals within the group are connected. Hence, as a group, we are all one family, some closer than others. This is why we hear the famous saying of love thy neighbour rather than everyone as thyself. Neighbour means those whom we know or encounter personally, including animals, insects and plants, rather than just conceptually. In other words, to transform from a position of selfishness to one of selflessness through higher awareness awakening, which incidentally is the original objective of all true religions and true spirituality. In the meantime, as participants in karmic creation, we all have to go through our karmic or scripted destiny, whether we believe in it or not, whether we have faith in it or not. But an unshakable faith makes it much easier to go through our karma. Even perfect living masters have to go through their borrowed karma, but they face it with cheer and acceptance through trust and faith in the Supreme Lord, their own Holy Master. Thus, they are an example to us all of how to best deal with the ups and downs of life. Similarly, those enlightened ones among us follow the same rules of acceptance to their karmic destiny and personal development, known as grace, in place of judgment and distress of the others. In addition to being courageous in accepting our given script in life, we should try not to create new problems for ourselves, through instead seeking higher knowledge and awareness, which only true spirituality can give. New karma is called kriyaman karma, and these new consequences must be repaid, partly in this life, then completed in the next, and so on, even for initiates of a perfect living master. To help break this cycle, in addition to seeking high truth, holy masters tell us that whatever you do, do it as if it was your last action. Do it as if it's the most important action in your life, and do it as if you are doing it for the Lord's scrutiny. Then your actions will always be noble and appropriate. But I've also been asked, what is the mechanism behind the law of karma? Well, the first point to note is this: the law of karma only applies to the jiva, the character of ourselves, and not to the soul. This is very important. The soul has no karma. Therefore, all this explanation is only relevant to the character we are playing in this drama staged in a dream, and not to our true self, the soul, which is already perfect and noble in every way, like its creator. So everything related to karma only concerns our adopted character in creation. Now, with that understanding, let's proceed. In life, the same question often arises, which is this: sometimes good people are seen to perform sinful actions, while bad people occasionally perform virtuous actions. What is the reason for such inconsistency in behavior versus their apparent role in life? Well, the answer is in two parts. First, and I would say most controversially, is the fact that in truth there are no good or bad actions, as explained in Sant and in Sikhism, for example, in the sphere of the true Lord, hukam, or true Lord's will. Only actions, for nothing happens outside of the true Lord's will. It is only the given mindset of the observer or participant that declares or decides whether an action is good or bad. Thus, each one is actually helpless, innocent of their doings, since they can only follow their script from the Supreme Lord and its consequences, whether they know this or not. However, one who is noble in nature, yet seemingly performs a bad deed due to their karmic script, is somewhat sheltered from the true consequences, if they act in the true Lord's name, and so neither takes credit for the good that they do, nor blame for the bad that they do, for they simply realize and accept that everything is in the hands of the true Lord itself, and that any interaction between individuals or objects is based upon karma, the consequences of past thoughts and deeds alone, and upon the Lord's will, not upon their own free will. So, neither the perpetrator nor the recipient are free of the interaction. Only one's attitude, via intention, gained through life after life conditioning known as sanskars, can create new karma, whether through knowingly causing harm to another being or object, or deliberately judging another being, etc. Indeed, all holy masters tell us that whatever good or bad is imposed upon us, it is simply the result of past dealings with each other or with the nature and objects, and thus not born of free will. The only importance, therefore, that should be considered in any interaction is intention and attitude. If one lives a noble life most of the time, with a noble heart and mind, yet performs an apparent wrongdoing, even though they dislike causing harm to anything, thus sincerely repents for the misunderstanding or misdeed once realized, then the true Lord intervenes and lightens the load for both the perpetrator and the recipient, but never cancels the fated interaction. But then, it is only one's nature or attitude that decides their reaction, whether born of forgiveness, love and knowledge, or of judgment, anger and ignorance, along with the accompanying consequences. Thus, quite usefully, the mode of one's reaction determines the level of one's comprehension and merit. In other words, reactions are a good measure of one's true level of human elevation or spiritual merit, where one's animalistic tendencies or spiritual lacking can cause a negative reaction, and a higher awareness of forgiveness, compassion and kindness is a higher state. So by your reaction you can tell where you are on this journey. Therefore, true holy masters tell us that one should always take a positive and constructive view of any interactions, and not lure oneself to barbarian tendencies or negativity, as those thoughts and deeds are binding upon one, which leads to future consequences. So bear that in mind when you observe the world around you and the individuals within it, as well as the events, level of harmony and spiritual attainment in one's own life. Judgment is the worst of these reactions, especially for those looking to make spiritual progress, which I shall briefly discuss now about. See, judgment as a mindset is the cruelest of desires inflicted upon human beings, since judgment, above all else, is the most obstructive and negative trait that a human being can follow, especially for spiritual followers, as it single-handedly blocks spiritual progress, no matter how much seva, spiritual practice, or other activities one performs in their daily routine, as it motivates and favors egotistic or destructive behaviors in one way or another. Indeed, judgment is the seed of anger, hatred, discrimination, greed, jealousy, pride, and even war. From one single mindset or belief system of judgment comes all other negative actions and consequences. the perfect trap for ignorant humanity. That is why Jesus the Christ famously said, "As you judge, so shall ye be judged." But judgment may be distinguished from vivek, meaning discernment, which is instead a useful tool to decide upon the right response to karmic unfolding, such as the right reaction to any event that confronts one in life here on earth. In fact, the whole karmic system is based upon this. Yet if one were to surrender to the true Lord's will, and so no longer judges the Lord's creation in recognition of what it actually is, illusion, by instead wisely going along with it, sensibly so, while seeking the real truth of it all, noting the sheer marvel and wonder of it too, then one would cease to feel suffering and instead, in a sense, live outside of the karmic judgment system by performing all deeds, reactions, thoughts, etc. in the name of the Supreme Lord, known as nishkam, or karmaless or selfless deeds. That naturally leads to grace or forgiveness for any inadvertent transgression. For disciples of a holy master, perfect saint or noble mystic, this is certainly easier to achieve than for others, through the mind-purifying power of the holy mantra given to them at the time of spiritual initiation, while for others they may recite the universal holy mantra of Satnam, simply meaning true name or true Lord, with faith and trust in the Supreme Lord or in any other noble entity known and respected by them as part of their belief system, sincerely within their heart. However, until a human being transcends the realms of karmic consequences through sincere holy meditation or true surrender to the Holy Master Saviour of their time, along with compassion and noble living, compassionate noble living, through observing kindness, forgiveness, unselfishness, and high truth seeking, then he or she may simply perform both good and bad deeds blindly, with unintended consequences, and so lives within the karmic system and karmic justice. The reason for this is that due to the effects of many lifetimes of thoughts and deeds, we hold both tendencies of good and bad within us. Indeed, one can only come into the human form if one is neither wholly good nor wholly bad, else they would naturally reside in either heaven or hell for the allotted period of time, to either enjoy the fruits of their good karma or to suffer the bad of it, respectively. But neither existence is forever, as some scriptures would have us believe. Meanwhile, since those born in human form must carry within them a mixture of good and bad, then on earth it works like this. For those who have accumulated a storehouse of mostly good karmas, then naturally they can restrain themselves from doing bad deeds even more, even though at times such inclinations may arise in their mind. Such a one also pays heed to the wisdom advice of the true saints, holy masters of noble scriptures, and thus chooses the right path. However, those who have an accumulated store of largely bad karmas seek judgment or revenge for all that happens to them, while ignoring the advice of the enlightened ones, where instead they relish indulgence in bad thoughts and deeds. The majority others, meanwhile, are a mixture of both to varying degrees. Hence, some days are good and some days are bad in their view, while others are indifferent. Thus, one's accumulation of meritorious thoughts and deeds in former life compels one to perform righteous acts in this life, rather than impious acts and vice versa. Now, in describing the types of karmic retribution found in the physical realm, both negative and positive, the holy masters and enlightened ones have clearly described 4 categories through which countless effects can be seen. They are, number 1, darkness or ignorance, resulting in often adverse or misguided reactions to most events in life. Then number 2, agitation or distress of the mind, resulting in the seeking of and indulgence in often illicit pleasures for comfort. Then number 3, obstacles and obstructions in life, resulting in the likely making of wrong choices to overcome them. And finally, the 4th one, physical or mental diseases, resulting in suffering, resentment, self-pity, and a likely indulgence in harmful distractions or remedies. Meanwhile, the positive or favorable versions of these are, to cover the darkness or ignorance, sincere truth-seeking, resulting in mostly noble understanding and favorable reactions to most events in life. And for the agitation and distress of the mind, the positive counterpart is a more peaceful mind, resulting in mostly clear and righteous thinking with goodness at heart. And then for 3, for the obstacles and obstructions in life, the positive version of those is smoother or simpler living, decluttering, let's say, resulting in less need to bother others for help, support, or to make bad choices in life. And finally, to cover for the mental or physical diseases, good health is the positive form, resulting in the likelihood of pursuing supportive health and well-being activities that are an example to others. So, just as bad, unfavorable karmas always cause pain and suffering, in the same way, good or favorable karmas increase the peace and joy of human beings. So, to conclude a little, let's now look at some deeper understanding of how it all works. In summary, karma only operates via the domain of the acquired mind tool, meaning from the 0 to 2nd realms as mentioned earlier, and so doesn't actually exist in the realms of pure soul, which is the 3rd to 5th. Now the ongoing perceptions of our lower, meaning emotional mind, experience the tools of imagination and the senses, are actually first generated by our higher thought or formless mind as concepts of duality. So the emotional mind experiences duality, which is a consequence of the universal mind of creating form and identity and the ego and separateness. And this duality means experience and experiencer, such as the manifestations of family, friends, associates, enemies, passers-by, objects, etc., along with the associated attachments of fear, worry, anticipation, hopes, and desires of the imaginative mind. Without these 5 concepts of imaginative mind, manifesting as reactions to temporary illusory events or karma that is brought before us every moment, the mind would have actually nothing to do or have nothing to react to as an individual lower mind. And this is, in fact, our reactions are our relationship to the experiences we have, which are based upon our sanskars, the conditioning of the mind tool. So those who have a higher thinking mind will react better to the same circumstance than those who have a lower thinking mind, more aligned with the animalistic mind. And when we are not reacting, and reaction to karmic life events actually occurs 80% of the time, roughly, in our day, then it is imagining or creating ideas, which is 20% of the time. So 20% of the time we are actually creating karma, and 80% of the time we're merely reacting to it. Mostly in the form of our creating is either dwelling in the past or anticipating the future. Only a small part, around 1 to 3%, is naturally focused in the now, current reality. So 1 to 3% of the time we actually focus on the now, which is a desired quality and a spiritual quality through life confronting events. So we just deal with the late events as they confront us, as they affect us. Therefore, most of the time is spent in thought, while we blindly react to the events of our life 80% of the time. And 20% of the time we are imagining scenarios and dramas and desires for the 20% of the time, which then must be fulfilled. Only 1 to 3% of the time do we actually just get on with the events before us in an almost mindless state, and just deal with it as it comes without judgment and without any thoughts involved. And that is the ideal. So spiritual practice is designed to try and train us to always be in the now. Because by always being in the now, we're not adding to our karmic burden. Since everything apart from the now is merely imagination, illusion, then living in the now is all that should matter for anyone in truth. But even then, one's experience of the now is open to interpretation, and how one interprets each moment of now is subject to one's comprehension or understanding, where comprehension itself is based upon the collective experiences and knowledge gained from previous lives, termed the past. These past experiences and subsequent learning leave impressions upon the mind, called sanskars, that shape our future character and our reaction to the now, among others, which is what we experience every day, for example. So, how we interpret every moment of now depends upon our sanskars, impressions upon the mind that give it shape of a personality with a certain level of comprehension that is persistent and unavoidable at first. Yet built into this system is the ability to learn from the consequences of encountering and reacting to actual experiences. Hence the saying goes that sentient beings are evolving through experiencing life after life, event after event. So that gives a framework for the ongoing saga and drama of life as it unfolds before us, and our reaction to it means that we're shaping our reactions based upon the experiences and consequences of what we did formerly. So this is kind of an evolving journey, and that's why Westerners often refer to this as we're journeying through existence. We are learning life's lessons, which is partly true, but that's not the object of it. That's just a factor of what happens along this of seeking the truth. And we're here really to seek the truth of it all, and the rest of it's all incidental. But taking an even closer look about how karma works in everyday life and how it's best to deal with it, for those able to do so, let's just briefly look at this. As already explained, the law of karma is one of the two most important laws governing our lives here on earth. Divine grace being the other law that will be looked at later. Thus, once we understand correctly the true workings of karmic law and hence act accordingly, we will begin to experience a huge sense of relief, truth and harmony within our heart. But if we simply ignore this law, the nature of things, which is the true nature of things, and so live in a way that is out of harmony with the high truth of life, then we will experience conflict, misery and confusion, as most seem to do in this modern age. Yet how to make the best use of this knowledge, given the absolute governance of this natural law? Incidentally, the law of karma is not confined to our physical world. It is also the fundamental law governing all karmic realms, from the physical to the causal, via which all life forms actually create individual realities for themselves, as individuals, which are simply projected before them as their own unique reality, that is then further intertwined in a predestined way with others, according to the group understanding. Because when we manifest it here as a group of trillions of individuals, Each one had their pre-scripted story laid out before them, and each one knew at that time exactly what they're going through, and most importantly, that they will eventually be rescued. So it didn't matter for them how good or bad the story would be, as long as in the end they'll escape and say, wow, what a beautiful play. So this is the point about spiritual practice leading to that awareness and understanding of the rule of karma and how to escape it or transcend it, so that we actually make sense of our life. And interestingly, for those people who have that awareness, they can experience the same misery as others, yet smilingly go through it because they're not affected. They understand what is going on, and they just simply say, it is hukum, the Lord's will. Okay, let's see what happens next. Let's deal with the now and not worry about the consequence, not think of the past and not worry about the future. Let's just get on with it now. Imagine just living in the now. The happiness is always there. Happiness can never be in thinking ahead in the future or in dwelling in the past. Happiness only resides in the now, because only now is real. Everything else is imaginary. Whether you're thinking of the past, that's an imagination, it's happened, and you're just making it up in your own mind how it could be otherwise. Or thinking about the future, you're worrying about what is to come, or what may be, but you have no knowledge of it. You don't actually know. So therefore, the only thing you're sure of is now. So living now is the only reality, and you can control the effect that has on you with understanding philosophy. So the whole point of all these talks is say, let's look at the now, and let's have that higher awareness through spiritual practice, meditation, holy mantra, to enlighten the mind to such a point that it makes sense of the now and simply enjoys it. Whereas others who don't do this, they suffer every moment of it because they add their emotion to it. Yeah, an event is occurring, which is just an event, but it's the emotion that you apply to it that says this is a good thing or a bad thing. So, once understood, a great sense of wisdom and relief comes about. Thus one goes with the flow, while positively fashioning one's attitude to the best of one's ability. But how exactly does karma translate itself into everyday life, and uniquely so for each and every one of us, is a further mystery, which is wholly different to the way humans practice earthly law and justice. Because of this difference, many dispute its authority, and thus this is where the confusion or unfairness or unacceptance lay. Yet it remains relentless, unmoved by human beliefs. So karma doesn't care whether you believe it or not. It doesn't care whether you love it or not. It is a relentless, ongoing mechanism that goes on regardless of what your viewpoint of it all. So the smart thing to do would be to go along with it, understand its workings and rise above it and get the hell out of here. So, as mentioned earlier, one must understand that the natural law of karma operates differently to how our human sensibility may think. For example, here on earth, we have something called mitigation. This means that if a human law is broken or misdeed occurs, but is sooner or later followed by sincere countermeasures or remorse, then this reduces or alleviates the severity of the consequence of the transgression. The result of this is leniency in passing judgment or consequences. However, karmic law doesn't operate in this way. Mitigation doesn't exist in natural law. Instead, each thought and deed is separately recorded in the Akashic records, an accounting justice system located primarily for thoughts and intentions at the top of the causal realm or second realm of karmic creation, as new causative factor for retribution, and secondly for behavioral deeds, in the sense of how their behavior will be developed. So at the top of the first realm, we have a system where behavior is determined, and at the top of the second realm, consequences are determined. So this karmic story, as you can see, is quite intricate and quite complicated, and binds everyone, including spiritual practitioners, to its yoke. And the only way to get past this is to change one's attitude, to listen to such things like this, test it out, live in the Lord's will, live in the now, and see the difference by following the hukum of the Lord, the will of the Lord, how that changes the way things come out before you. But then again, this requires courage. So if your sanskars are not inclined that way, and you're an egotist, and you say, I am in charge of my life, I must do this, I must do that, I don't let anybody else, I'm not handing over the reins of control to anyone, then that is just your fate. But for those brave enough to understand the hukum of the Lord and say, okay, if it's all your will, what can I do about it other than go along with it? But at the same time, what can I do to reduce the difficulties associated with it and to get out of the system? And that's where Sant or spiritual practice comes in. So escaping the karmic trap requires this level of understanding. Whilst there are many theories today about how to become enlightened or saved, etc., the fact is that until one is truly ready, one cannot escape the karmic trap. But if ready, such as for those already on the high path to soul liberation, or those who have just come across this talk, let's say, among related others, and are sincerely interested, then such a one can start or continue to do the following endeavors. So continuously remember what you have just learned is the first step. In order for that wisdom to take hold upon you, because the mind is a learning tool, if you continue to think about this, what karma is, the hukum of the Lord will, and the fact that there's no such thing as good and bad, only events, and it's your emotions applied to those events that turn it into something good or bad, rather than just simple karmic payback or retribution, then this is the order for those who are affected by the karma in a certain way. So if wisdom takes hold, the result is a more thoughtful existence with spiritual truth and compassion at its core. Once understood, then this will likely enable the means by which one can do what is right in life and to live wisely in the true Lord's will. One will then prefer to avoid any voluntary, not imposed negativity in one's life that one can safely remove oneself from, such as distancing yourself from or even cutting yourself off from the judgmentality of others or events, or even separating yourself from the idea of seeking harm to others through harmful deeds and speech. Such individuals do not bring any peace to your heart, do not uplift your spiritual well-being, and do not elevate you to higher understanding. Indeed, by keeping such negative company, you will only bring yourself down to their level, which not only brings you closer to misery, but also creates new negative line of karma and mindset for yourself, which must be fulfilled in one way or another, thus robbing you of peace of mind or success. So, apart from stimulating your mindless curiosity, negative people offer no benefit to you at best, while robbing you of your peace of mind or altering your mind towards negativity at worst. Sadly, in the West, though, because so many films, videos, news, music, and the social media, etc., are written or produced by those with dramatic or negative minds, championing the worst of humanity as something of entertainment, then most people think that it is okay to indulge in such negative followings, just to be part of the miserable or indeed self-righteous crowd, who are largely hypocrites anyway. Therefore, this is not something that is ever acceptable to the enlightened ones, nor to the holy masters, etc., as it is wholly detrimental to the spiritual and mental well-being of both individuals and the society they live in. It is the Supreme Lord's role alone to act as governor of his creations, and not for you to try to do so by expressing your views of judgment or condemnation, etc. Therefore, in modern times, apart from negative people and environments, the key sources of negativity to avoid are dark, violent, offensive, or what we call non-feel-good movies, music, or shows, plus mainstream news programs and general non-spiritual, non-positive social media, which 90% plus of the time only presents or reports the worst of humanity and almost never champions all the good that is performed in the world, nor all the love, kindness, and right that exists in the world, but instead simply pampers to the dramatic wants of modern negative societies. And finally, one should avoid negative thinking within oneself that is subtly indoctrinated by mainstream society, such as something strangely normal or even necessary, simply because they are miserable. So they take this as a norm. So as they want everybody else also to be the same, in order to feel somewhat normal or to be part of a group. So if they're miserable, they want to make everybody around them miserable too, just to feel that they belong somewhere and that others join them. But you do not have to subscribe to this way of thinking or living. By not indulging in it or accepting it as this is as okay, but instead replacing this habit with positive thinking, noble ideals and objectives, and spiritual practice that celebrates your true higher worth, you can rise above negative, oppressive societal indoctrination. The next thing to do is to associate with the company of the enlightened ones, or those of higher understanding, that like that of the noble spiritual practitioners, philosophers, or the holy masters, etc., so that the company you keep will positively support your newfound ideal. And when combined with the ongoing reading, listening, and reflecting upon higher truth via truly spiritual organizations such as ISTAuk or Sant, among others, who support positive spiritual enlightenment without resort to elitism, judgment, or damnation, or external rites and rituals that lead you astray, like so many other so-called helpful spiritual organizations do in the name of the Lord, then this will greatly aid your spiritual merit. Thus, steer clear of those organizations that promise God or enlightenment, yet are fundamentally hypocritical by promoting exclusivism and judgment as their ethos, rather than love, truth, kindness, oneness, forgiveness, and equality, just like Jesus Christ, Guru Nanak, and the Buddha, etc., taught in their time, though sadly not observed by their institutions today. And finally, to avoid creating new negative karma, simply go with the flow and don't use your intent, born of desire, to decide what to do. Instead, simply react wisely to what comes your way with faithful knowledge of the ethical code we have been advised to follow by the great holy masters of the Supreme Lord. It is only when the mind activates its decision-making skills to make mind-related choices that new karma is formed. Whatever we create or construct in this life due to our desires and reactions continues to operate life after life for us, regardless of whether we believe it or not. Indeed, all thoughts and deeds have to be settled, whether in this life or the next, and whether the individual is on the high spiritual truth seeking or not, as that is the law of having the privilege of living in the human form, which, if we remember, is the only form of life in karmic creation by which one can escape the entire illusory creation, 0 to second realm of mind and maya, through spiritual practice. With this in mind, what follows now is a simple summary of the 5 noble precepts that guide sincere truth seekers on the right path to spiritual enlightenment. versions of which exist everywhere, though are not so complete. So, the 5 noble truths of Sant. Number 1, and most importantly, is do no harm to yourself. Many people think of harm to others, but what about to yourself? You are as much a part of this karmic realm as everyone else, and therefore if you disregard the human form, then such will be your lot. Now, do no harm to yourself means be vegan, eat only plant-based foods or medicines, and use only cruelty-free products and clothes. Do not consume any animal-based products or use cruel industry items. Live a healthy lifestyle. Look after the body as if it were a holy temple of the Lord, by eating healthily, tending towards good or noble environments, and keeping generally fit, thus avoiding unhealthy food, mind-disturbing imagery or music or speech, and harmful environments or sloth. Do not ingest harmful substances or use harmful products, such as mind-altering or intoxicating drugs, harmful chemicals, foods, cosmetics, or animal-based products. Keep only good and noble company, such as that of the holy true Sangat, noble friends, associates, or other pious people, while seeking the company of the saints, holy masters or noble mystics, and avoiding those of strong negativity, bad character, or impious virtue that may negatively affect you. So this is the way to do no harm to yourself. Then do no harm to others. Be loving, kind, and compassionate. Act only with the attitude of goodness, piety, and spiritual nobility, while not indulging in harmful speech, actions, or thoughts. Be selfless and helpful in attitude, unselfishly serving others as if they were your own loved ones, as best you can, without seeking reward or recognition, which is important. Be environmentally conscious. Care about your impact on society and the planet, by not being a burden to others or unnecessarily damaging, polluting the environment, but instead earn one's honest keep and recycle where possible, while avoiding harm or cruelty to society and the environment. Support noble industry or enterprise, those that represent the core values of the holy precepts, while avoiding any support for harmful industries, peoples, or systems. Then number 3 is judge not the Lord's will. Do not judge others nor creation for what they simply are by design. Forgive others without conditions, for all are innocent victims of karma, and do not separate what you see before you into good and bad, for you are in truth the origin of it all, though you may not yet realize this through the subtle veil of spiritual ignorance. Recognize the simple spiritual law of attraction. In this case, as you judge, so shall you be judged, as the rule. In other words, negative thoughts and deeds attract negative consequences, resulting in suffering and a lack of a peaceful mind. Thus, diligently practice righteous, pious living by following the noble principles of Holy True Sant as your guide. Then fourthly, seek the highest truth. Whatever one may desire to do in life, sincerely seeking the highest truth of oneself and one's true origin while in the human form should be central to one's life, no matter what else one may be doing. Unless one becomes a true seeker of the grand play of life and creation, all else will be in vain. Nothing here will last forever, and nothing here will be taken with you upon your death. Only your thoughts and deeds, in consequential form or effect, will be accounted for after physical death. No other factor, however great or small, will be taken into account. Indeed, whether you're a king or a pauper, a rich man or a beggar, a hero or a nobody, None of this will matter at the time of death. No one will ask you how much successful was your work, your business, your marriage, your friendships, your life, or other worldly dealings. Only your attitude, attachments, and desires will be carried with you for consequential fulfillment. So seek the truth, no matter what else you may be doing, and the truth shall set you free, to famously quote the Christian Bible. And finally, the fifth precept, live in the now. For all of us in the human form, there is only now, meaning this present moment. For that alone carries any real meaning for us, not the past or the future, since we simply do not exist in those time frames. By dwelling in the past, we can only reflect, either positively or negatively, upon what has already passed and cannot be changed. Similarly, by anticipating the future, either with hope or fear, one cannot change the outcome of one's destiny. Indeed, there is no substance to either past or future. Only now has substance, and thus a meaningful interaction. So going with the now, or going with the flow in recognition of our destiny, but with the right attitude and wisdom in mind mentioned earlier, is the best we can do. Whatever comes our way, with wisdom, one should be practical and logical, accepting it as something that we have to rightly deal with, and thus make the best of it, in the now. What else can we truly do? Indeed, we can either enjoy the whole show sorry, of the events, or we can either enjoy the whole show of life and creation as a wonder of existence, or we can uselessly try to change the course of events to waywardly suit our desires, leading to chaos. For further help, one may relate to the guideline of living in the Lord's will. Sorry, let me take some water. I promise you this is nearly done now. I will get to the rest of the question. It's just that we had to explain this in detail from so many different backgrounds, religious, philosophical, and other inquiries. And so now hopefully we have a definitive guide to karma, and people will be so bored of it now they'll just want to live in the now, not think about it anymore, which is the objective. So yes, so for further help one may read the related guideline, Living in the True Lord's Will, which is available from ISTAuk, from our administrator. So to now, all this truth that I humbly share with you today is in fact a gift of wisdom from the Supreme Lord itself, that all can verify within themselves. So this is not just hearsay. The people who actually follow this line, who've actually attained this, speak with this same tune, the same breath. Live in the now. Don't take this world seriously. This is just a drama staged in a dream. Concentrate on what you must be doing. And if you fill your day with just dealing with the now, you'll have no time to think about anything else. You'll have no time to do anything else. So, first thing is to occupy yourself with what is the most important thing, which is dealing with the now in the right way, with wisdom and understanding. So, and this happens when we start our spiritual practice. Indeed, for myself, I was once a diamond in the rough, till the Lord took pity upon me and transformed me into a knower of the truth, via the grace of the Holy Master today, who all initiated me. A knowledge given, which I hope to share with you, which is what we're doing today. So that ends the discussion on karma. Hopefully I will not get any more millions of emails regarding everyday things, but we do have some questions now, which are much more specific about different aspects of it, But before that, is there anybody want to ask anything from the audience? Yeah, you're all still awake. Yes, go ahead, Sean. So go ahead.
Is there a simplistic way to explain what you've just explained?
Yes, I have summarised it.
Just in everyday language.
You see, if you're looking at it from, say, your perspective, which comes from a spiritual background,
Yeah.
and you're not of another philosophy, you're not Islamic or Christian and so on, so I don't need to produce all the evidence to show in line, then I can simply say that the whole concept of karma is an illusion. It doesn't actually exist. But it exists because you believe in it. So if you decide that you want to opt out of the karmic system, you attach yourself to something which is beyond the karmic system. So in spirituality we have a holy master, and through something called love and devotion to that holy master and devotion to bhakti, your spiritual practice, this raises you above the concept of karma. But I have explained in detail the workings of karma, and karma itself is not good or bad, it's just occurrences. You put that interpretation upon it based upon your emotions. So, for example, if you're a certain type of alien which has no emotion, they react to the circumstances of life without saying it is good or bad. They go into instinctive reactions because that's the way they're programmed. They don't add the spin of emotion. We as human beings have an added dimension in that because we emotionally relate to karma. When something goes wrong as we see it, rather than an event occurring, we say this is wrong because we don't like it. Yeah, but our neighbour might say, "Oh, that's a good thing." Which one of you is right? So karma is in the eye of the beholder, how you relate to it. So the idea of spiritual practice or understanding is to not put the emotion into karma, not to divide into good or bad. Therefore, don't judge. Just deal with it, because you have no choice. Karma has created your entire life. Every breath is predetermined in your life. So why not simply change your attitude to it all, rather than try to change the events of life, which you cannot do. With the best will in the world, you cannot change anything. Absolutely. Not even the masters will do that. But what can happen is, let's say you're going through a very difficult patch and you're struggling with this, you can withdraw the attention. In fact, through spiritual practice, this becomes automatic and you don't even notice. It's only afterwards, when you kind of recover, let's say, full consciousness, that you suddenly think to yourself, oh, what happened? You know, I'm not really sure, it's all fuzzy. So you went through some extreme difficulty, but you felt hardly nothing. You felt actually something, 10%, but the 90% was taken away from you, but you still underwent the karma. So that's a way, this is an understanding of how to deal with karma. But ultimately, when you reach a high point, karma is unreal. It's just made up. It's a story, a script. Like the movie is not real. But when you sit before the screen, you think it's real. You enjoy it. You know, you're vying for the hero and say, damn the villain. Come on, hero, go for it. Why? Because you suspend your disbelief of the unreality of it all, and you decide to make it real. But the moment you step out of the cinema, you say, oh, it was only a film. Yeah, but when you're actually involved in the film, you actually think it's real. It's a fascinating thing that we can suspend our logic, our belief, to enjoy a drama. And that's exactly what we're doing in this life. If we translate that concept from film into life, then if we step back a little bit and look at the whole of our life and say, this is just a play, there's no reality to anything that's going on here. But then you have to make that understanding truthful to you. And spiritual practice does it. When you meditate or when you concentrate on higher truth, slowly your mindset changes and you start understanding the higher truth. Even if you don't see it, you just know. So spirituality overrides the karma. We've explained how the system works. And even spiritual beings are all trapped in it. But once you understand, firstly, it is not real. Nothing here is real. But it looks real when you suspend your disbelief. When you decide to switch off your higher awareness and participate in the drama wholeheartedly, and then you add emotion to it, then you have the full experience. But if you can understand that this is exactly what you're doing and keep a check on yourself, and this is supported by spiritual practice, meditation, to raise your awareness higher so it becomes an automatic response rather than a forced response, then you can just go through this life quite smoothly. And in fact, even so, the events of life as scripted will go through, you feel nothing. Because at the end of the day, what it's all about really is our happiness. Even if the whole world is going to pot, if we're still happy, what does it matter? What's going on externally to us, as long as we're happy? Because humans are seeking happiness in whatever they do, and they have various ways of doing it. Some want to raise a big business, have lots of money, and they think that's going to make them happy. Others try to run off into the hills and cut away from society, say, I want to be on my own, and then they think that's going to make them happy. Others find love, romance, friendships, hobbies, and they all try to find happiness. Why are they doing all these things? For happiness. Nobody does anything to make themselves miserable on purpose. Right? Nobody seeks misery. Nobody says, let me find the most miserable thing in the world and let me follow it. Why not? Because the inherent nature of human beings, which are already dukkhi, they're already sufferers, is to seek happiness. Now, in these temporary measures, these things are fleeting. They never last. We go shopping, we buy something for ourselves, makes us feel good, and put it on, and then we put it away in the wardrobe and forget about it. How long did that last? The effort gone to go shopping, the planning, the scheming, the researching, then you put it on, then you put it away, and you never see the light of day again. Right? What was all that about? It was a waste of effort. If we simply increase our awareness by listening to such things, constantly reminding ourselves that this is all nonsense and nothing here is permanent, it's all fleeting and temporary, then we do less of those things and say, actually, I want to be happy regardless of what's happening around me. You see, there's a difference between joy and pleasure. Joy is something that can only generate from within you. You cannot find joy outside. Joy is a natural inherited quality of a higher evolved individual, one who understands the truth of what's going on around them. And they turn what they see around them into a wonder. So let's say there's a big world war going on, or an earthquake killing millions. They go, wow, what a spectacle. Look how cleverly designed this is. And these people believe that they're being killed. And their family are crying and wailing and horroring for their loved ones. They really follow all of this. It becomes a marvel to you of deception. How it is all like this. So you have a very different take. So the Lord sees these events very differently. He sees an unfolding of evolution. Because without the person dying in that earthquake, they cannot move on to the next form. What does it matter what manner of their death? Whether it's a gun, sword, or an earthquake that kills them. They are moving on to their next part of their journey. Why would you stop them? Why would you interfere with that? You would not like anybody to interfere with your journey. So this understanding is important when you're witnessing the events of the world. It's not what it seems. Everything is in the Lord's hand. Everything is happening according to a timeline. But when you put your emotion to it, selfish, which is always born of selfishness. Emotion is selfish, that's it. You say, no, I want this, I prefer that, I like this, I don't like that. Then you have a problem. Then you start separating things into good or bad, and then what happens next? You start judging. And who are you judging? The Lord itself. So the Lord says, okay, if you want to judge me, I'll judge you, because I'm just your mirror. I'm a mirror of you. I'm a reflection of you. Whatever you do, I'll do back. And then we say, whoa, this karma is really bad. Yeah, but, that's your level of understanding at that time. So if you have the opportunity to hear such wisdom as you're hearing now, and the courage to take it on board and test it, then you're well on the way to being freed from all this misery. And then what happens is, the joy of understanding comes in. The joy of wonder. Even a simple leaf falling from a tree becomes a wonder to you. The way it majestically just sways in the air until it hits the ground. And even looking at the leaf itself, the structure and wonder, the marvel of it. You see, when everything just becomes a wonder, then you are freed from the rights and wrongs of it all. You are simply seeing something happen as a marvel of existence, of creation. But then what happens? You start thinking, who created it? How did this come about? How can such a marvel exist? You start inquiring about that within. So this slowly draws you more earnestly within. There are actual stages of spirituality, and most people go through this. The first thing is the disillusionment with the world. They see everything around them and they say, I'm not happy with what's going on around here. And I cannot find pleasure anymore in doing these mundane things that I used to do before. Something changes in you, you see. Even that's not in your hand, but I'm going to tell you the story. Then you start making inquiry. So you seek alternative answers. You may go here and there. People explain this theory, that theory. But when you're on your ascent upwards to the higher truth, then all the nonsense theories filter away. You say, that doesn't satisfy me. But you don't know why. The mind says, that sounds pretty good. But why am I not satisfied? So as you move on in this wisdom seeking journey, you start recognizing higher truths from lower truth. You use something called vivek, which is our discernment ability. This is not a judgment. This is an observation of what is in our interest and what is not. Because we're on a particular mission. Whereas for somebody else, they're happy to be in illusion. Let them enjoy themselves. They're following some ritual, dancing, chanting, and they're happy. And you say to them, are you happy? To say, yeah, I'm happy for now. Okay. But you are something different. You're seeking absolute answers and absolute joy. And that happens from within you. It becomes a need. So the first thing after disillusionment is the need to know, to make sense of life. That's what I hear most people say, I just want to understand this all. Why should they want to understand it all? Their neighbour doesn't care. They're just wallowing in the mud happily. Why are you so special? Because that's part of your journey. So as these things appear within you, you will act accordingly. So then that seeking within you starts making you ask questions within. And then when you become a seeker, because you're asking questions, even if you've done nothing about it, the Lord intervenes. The Lord says, right, this one is ready. Fruit is ready to be plucked. So let me put them onto the path. So by hook or by crook, as you see coincidences, you are put onto the path. And then you start doing the practice. So you learn all the answers you wanted from the mind's point of view. It all makes sense. And then you start doing your spiritual practice and say, no, I don't want to just hear about it. I want to see it for myself. And you have every right to say that. Say, okay, what do I need to do? Then you do put some effort in. You say, okay, this is the methods being prescribed, spiritual practice. And when you totally let go and totally have faith and have the courage to live in the now and follow it, or it must not do anything that distracts you, everything is revealed to you. The interesting thing is that no one has ever gained the truth through ardent spiritual practice. Only when they totally let go. And it can happen just like that, in a second. And all people who have had inner understanding, enlightenment, actually it happened when they weren't putting too much effort into it. They just let themselves go and say, okay, Lord, you decide. And they're just in that kind of calm, almost blank-like state, reciting the names, let's say holy mantra, and suddenly it manifests within them. They suddenly realize they've been transported somewhere. And they're thinking, oh, what is this? So spiritual enlightenment can happen in a moment. It's not ardent work. You don't have to put hours in. It's totally unrelated to karmic existence. In karma, you have to work hard for everything. You know, to earn $1, you have to work for a whole month, and then you get paid. And spiritual practice doesn't work like that. One famous guru, Guru Angad, who was the second guru in the Sikh lineage, he was initiated at over 70 years old. He lived most of his life as a normal human being, but a good human being. But he was initiated over the age of 70. And within a moment he was transformed after initiation. He became enlightened. So what opportunity did he have to meditate for years? He didn't. But what was he? He was an earnest seeker. He was constantly seeking the truth, even though he didn't know what he was doing. And the secret is that this seeking matters, not what you do, how to get there, right? We focus in the modern age on what you're doing. What are your physical actions related to this journey? But the actual truth is, no. A path had to be created at some point because people, especially back in the day, needed some sort of structure to their inquiry. They wanted answers. So the master says, okay, let's invent a path called Sant. Right, this is what you must do. But nobody has attained that truth by doing that. Whoever has attained the truth has, because deep down within them, it has become a need. It has become a yearning, a vira, a longing. And they feel that they are going to suffocate unless this happens. In fact, there's a really good book called, published by Radhaswami, which is called Voice of the Heart. And this book is a book of Shabads, and meaning songs, celestial songs, let's say, in which it describes the various saints' journey to enlightenment. And this is very interesting, the account, because they talk first about how unworthy they are, how all the things that you think you are, that they're useless, they don't do their practice, they don't do what they're told, they don't do anything. Oh Lord, please have them. But one thing that's interesting is they were still begging the Lord for help, recognizing that they can do nothing. The Lord does everything. The Lord's hukam. They're constantly, day and night, yearning and burning. And they say that we feel like we're burning with this need to know. We feel like we're being consumed by flames. We're drowning. They use this very powerful emotive language to describe that thirst they have within them. It's so overwhelming. And of course, the Lord never says no to something like that. How could the Lord? He wouldn't be a very merciful Lord. And the Lord grants them this. And their individual journey is in these Shabads you could read. And this is very interesting reading. In fact, I think it's the most interesting reading, because what better reading than to read the account of somebody who actually made it. Somebody who actually did it. Yeah? And they've laid down the bare bones of what they did, good and bad. And they talk about them as being vile sinners and all of these things. Right? Yet they became saints. It's a very interesting account. And when you look at their journey and what they were doing, they were having a lot of the troubles you were having, but they got to a point which it became a burning, because they kept feeding it like a fire, it became out of control. And then the Lord took pity upon them and opened their awareness. Now, in the modern day times, we are prescribed a more gentler method. For example, you sit in your meditation and force yourself to connect with the Lord. But can that really do it? Can you achieve anything of this nature by force? No, it's not possible. But it keeps you occupied. And what happens? You feel good. You go to somebody who says, yeah, I've done my 2.5 hours meditation, I'm a good satsangi, I go to satsangs all the time, I do this seva, I do all of these things. And none of these things take you to the true Lord. None. Yeah? Because these are all born of ego. I am doing this, I am doing that. The moment you let go and say, Hukam, the Lord's will only prevails. The Lord is the doer of everything. Please, Lord, help me to follow in this will. And you day and night pleading and seeking, no matter how you do your practice. Yeah, but that yearning, that vira longing in you comes, the Lord will enlighten you. Then you will sit in meditation only to enjoy the fruits. Yeah, but it is possible to sit in meditation and be enlightened. But those ones have already gone to that stage. So they've been sitting for many past lifetimes, and so they'll sit quietly somewhere because their circumstances are such, and they get enlightened. But not because they sat. It was just means by which they could become enlightened because of what they've inherited. Their longing was there. If it was just a physical sitting, then all Buddha's disciples should have been enlightened like him. They weren't. They'd copied him exactly. They sat for hours and hours. They weren't enlightened. Why? How come only the Buddha was enlightened? The Buddha had a unique quality. He was an earnest seeker, demonstrated by the way he lived his life. Similarly, all the people who become enlightened in this life are prepared to cut off their head and hand it to the Guru's feet. In other words, at any cost. They want this. But you can't want it. It becomes a need. Yeah? Nobody will want that at any cost. People say, yeah, I want to know the truth, I want this, I want that. They don't actually need it yet. They still got some mileage in their miserable life. They still see some joy and misery and struggle. And they still want to go along that way because they're supported by the community of struggle and misery. So they feel kinship. If they were to separate from themselves and go off in a corner and meditate, let's say, or seek the real truth, they'll have no friends to talk to. That's why it takes a bit of courage to be an individual, to step outside the crowd and do something different. Nobody has to know about it though, it's just done in private. But even while you're working and walking, you're constantly in this train of thought, wanting to know, okay, master, this and that. Especially for initiate of a living master, it's easier because they have a figurehead to respond to. Otherwise, they could just call the Lord and say, Lord, please help me, true Lord. And when they make their life, the Lord, the center of their life, recognizing that very quickly everything comes to them. You know? So the real truth is, nothing is what it seems. Karma is not real unless you invest in it, unless you want to believe in it, unless you want to take part in it. Then you're going to go down the judgment game. This is good and this is bad, and now you see this karma. And therefore you react good and bad accordingly, and you create problems for yourself. But if you can attach yourself to something higher and greater than karma itself, then karma no longer exists for you. You do for the sake of doing, but you do it in the Lord's name. In other words, you say, Lord, just please help me this day to do whatever I have to do. I'm not going to put any energy into this. I'm just going to go with the flow, go with the motion, and leave it all up to you. And my thoughts will be constantly with you. So when you're constantly thinking of the Lord whilst doing any action, that action has no karma. Simple. And if you're doing that, another consequence is you are elevating yourself as well without even realizing. So, but it does require courage to get onto the path of living in the now and trusting in the Lord. That's why I always say live in the Lord's will for 7 days. Test it. Prove that it works. Then repeat it in case it was a fluke. And then repeat it again in case there's something missing. And you'll find that every time you do it, it works. But if you're not fond or attached to misery, and you say to misery, I have lived with you for many lifetimes now, please find somewhere else to reside, then you even feel sorry for misery. When the time for misery to leave you comes, you feel, oh misery, where will you go? I feel sorry, you have made such a home in me for so long. Now that I have kicked you out, because I found something better, where will you go? And misery says, don't worry, I have plenty of victims. Yeah? And you say farewell to misery. You know, even you don't judge the misery. So that nature, this is the way of the saints, this is the way of the enlightened ones. They see life very differently, but they all went through this testing process. You have to be prepared to go through this testing process until it becomes a need. Once your seeking becomes a need, then everything follows fairly quickly. And to get it to the need, spiritual practice is certainly the easiest way, by constantly listening to things like this, constantly thinking about it, and saying, I just want to know the truth. That's it. And you'll be sitting there contemplating, which is akin to meditating. You don't have to be formally sitting in meditation. That happens afterwards. In the beginning, you just contemplate. And contemplation means that you're raising your attention to the higher mind realm. So then you start awakening these higher thinkings, this intuition, this wisdom within you, and suddenly start changing your attitude. And even you yourself say, I don't know why, but that person did this harm to me and I didn't think anything of them. I didn't judge them. I feel nothing. I feel blank. Even so, they tried to harm me. I don't know why I don't feel anything. Then you start thinking something wrong with you. I should feel anger, I should feel something, I should feel judgment, I should seek revenge, but you don't. And that's a measure of spiritual progress. It happens like this. There's little moments that come in your life where you suddenly realize there's an awakening going on. But your own mind will fight it, but it cannot win. Once the Lord takes you in hand, the mind cannot win. It hopelessly just looks at it and observes it and questions it. It plays its role, the antagonist, but it can never win. Because even when you try to convince yourself to hate them, because everybody else would, you cannot. Something more powerful is in you, but you don't understand it yet. Then when you have that realization, like you're sitting one time really in deep contemplation, maybe doing your meditation and Simran, and suddenly the world opens up to you, another world, and you have a wonderful experience. And then you're not sure whether this is real or not, but then you do the testing. You ask somebody who's enlightened, you say, well, was this a real experience? This is how it happened. You don't talk to other people. And then say, yes, you had an experience. Build upon it. Then you build upon that one thing. It gives you a living faith. Your faith then starts increasing to the point where you feel, I can dry the seas and level the mountains with just a wish. Even the rain and the wind obeys your command. But you cannot tell anybody. You just know it happens naturally. Not because you're egotistical, but because the Lord wants to make the path smooth for you, so you're less distracted from suffering, that you've got more time to spend on higher things. Suffering's only there to get you to the door. What's the point of suffering afterwards? What's the point of making you feel miserable afterwards? Once it's done its job. You know? So hopefully that's answered your question briefly. Yes, carry on, sorry.
Okay. Chances are you probably answered most of these
I
questions.
know, I was thinking about that. I was hoping that was the case.
I'll still ask them, and obviously if you want to
Yes.
say something brief or
Yes.
just skip over it. Right. Next question. Someone has said that there is only one law in the universe. You spoke about this. What goes around comes around. Doesn't this sound like the law of karma, or is there another law in the universe?
There are two laws that we spoke about, the law of grace and the law of karma. Karma we could consider negative because for most people it has a negative connotation, but it's not actually negative. Neither of the laws are negative, but for most people they think karma is negative because karma is the only one that has a tendency to cause suffering. So, we say it's a negative law of the universe, what goes around comes around. And of course, what goes around comes around only is suffering. If you put out something bad, then that's going to come back on you. But since the law says what goes around comes around, if you do something good, then good will happen to you. That's also the same law. But then we have something else. But both these laws trap you into doing, into acting, and into believing in the world. There's another law called the law of grace. And the law of grace is divine intervention for a truth seeker, as just mentioned earlier. So if you become an absolute truth seeker, the law of grace prevails, and you start living in hukum, in the Lord's will, then you don't have to worry about this karmic law. You paid no attention, whether it rebounds into the positive or negative way. You don't feel it at all. So that's the answer.
Talking about grace, there is a question that says, can you go more into depth about the interplay between the karma system and the grace system and how they operate together? If you want to add any more into that.
Well, I'm going to try and keep it simple because we've already been a long time with this. But I think we've explained quite a lot about how karma operates. And karma is a mechanism. It's a means, it's like a software program. What you put in, you get out. Okay? And if you put good information into the program, you get good information back. So karma, being the machine, is heartless. Now people think that karma is evil and it's negative and it's a bad thing because they add an emotional spin to it, simply the way it pans out for them. Another person says, my karma is wonderful. I'm a billionaire, I have a beautiful wife, I live in a yacht on the sea, and my karma is brilliant. He said, what are you complaining about? He said, but I live in a war-torn town which is being bombed every day. He says, for me, it's a miserable thing. He said, oh, well, He said, my experience is wonderful. Yeah? So karma is relative to the observer. And karma is the ongoing effect of thoughts and deeds. It creates the dramas. So karma is involved in creating the entire karmic creation and all the dramas within it. They all are based on this law called karma. Yeah? You could say it's like the script that's been written for a movie. The script writer has written everything that's going to happen. Not only the lines of the actors, but the scenery, the backdrop, everything that goes on is written in the script. We could say that's karma. Yeah? And the individuals are now playing it out, the consequences of that script. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose along the journey, right? So we say this is karma, it's good karma or bad karma, and that's exactly how it is, the script. Grace is something different. Grace is divine intervention that was agreed at the time when you were sent into the creation. And the time allocated for grace to start intervening is given at a certain point in your karmic journey. Otherwise you'll never leave. Because karma is such, there is a law of cause and effect. If the law of cause and effect has no end to it, it's not like law of cause, effect, end. No, it's timeless and endless. So, if you get trapped in the law of cause and effect, you have no way out. So something else has to intervene. We call this grace. So divine intervention intervenes. So this has been prior agreed at a certain point in your journey, when you would have gone through enough of the experience. Then you have to be pulled out. And this is all part of the play as well. So in this particular part of the play, the Lord manifests as a master or as some enlightened being and shows you the way out. Then you start going through this journey of discovery. Wow, all this that I took to be real is nothing. It's just a drama in a dream, and therefore it carries no weight or anything. And as this unfolding of realization occurs, you become more and more grateful to the one who introduced you to it. At the same time, they say, look, if you want to actually get out of this, rather than just having knowledge about it, you need to join me. You need to merge with me, because I come from beyond there. I'm the only one here in this illusion, who although looks like an illusion, I'm not, because I'm connected to the non-illusion part of creation. So if you join me via the illusion, the disguise that everybody else just sees, I can take you beyond. So then we have this as a leap of faith. But masters never rely on faith alone. They are actually pulling the strings behind the scenes and giving you the credit. And you think that you're making all the right moves, that you're becoming a devotee, you're doing all this, you get the credit. The masters enjoy watching that. So they go on, they give you the credit. You're doing this, yeah, you're a good satsangi, you're doing this, you're doing that. But then when you get to the Parbrahma, when you get to the third reach, you realize that the master is pulling the strings of every initiate as fast or as slow as they can tolerate. And what they thought was their own doings or their own actions was nothing but the grace. Yeah. So grace actually is everything. Yeah, from the point of view. So that's the difference.
Thank you. Why is karma given to an individual when Sant says that we weren't asked to be born into this world away from Sachkhand?
It's not a question of being asked. Actually, everybody who comes into this world, the Hans souls, all came here voluntarily. They came here for the experience, for the drama. And therefore, they incarnate in groups as such to play out this drama. However, once they are in this drama, the consequential segments or mini parts of that drama that unfold, they don't have a say, because they are under the law of karma, meaning that they're into the law of cause and consequence, and that was not known to them. So in other words, that they are seeing the start and the end of the play, and they say, okay, I'll have that character. But they then living the moments of all the bits in between. And so from their point of view, from the human point of view, they had no say. They were sent here, they were forced. And now the compassionate or merciful Lord rescues them. That's how they see it. That's how the books portray it. But actually that's not the case, because everything was agreed in the beginning. It's just that when you're undergoing it and you're cut off from that wisdom, sure, you think you're suffering. You think you're having difficulty, and therefore you pray for help. But already it has been ordained. Yes?
So on the question of suffering, I've understood that so-called suffering is subjective.
Yes.
For two reasons. One is how spiritual you are, and secondly, how much grace there is on you.
Yes.
You mentioned the situation of an illness. Let's take psychosis, for example. Let's take fear and schizophrenia and fear.
Mm-hmm.
The suffering here must be incomprehensible, but it's beyond that human beings gift, isn't it, to get
You
over
see, your
that.
statement of saying incomprehensible, somebody else might say there are some schizophrenics in very comfortable circumstances. They're taken care of by the state, they're pampered hand and foot. Yet a small child living in Africa, starving to death, being bitten by the tsetse fly, getting yellow fever, he would argue that he's in more discomfort.
I was thinking about
So it's relative.
I was thinking about the constant sufferer who's attempted suicide several times, and you know from
Is
such
that any
patients
different
they
from
go
any
to-
other suffering? You know, when somebody's undergoing suffering, ask them, is your suffering bad? They'll say, yes, I'm suffering. So it's this is a relative term. It's a perspective, yeah, a perception. And if you feel that your particular form of suffering is greater than another, then you'll amplify it. Yes, that's possible. This is what humans do. But actually suffering is suffering. If you ask anybody who's in suffering, they all feel it is suffering. And to grade it, everybody will have their own point of view. Tell me who's right. Yeah? If you have 10 sufferers, and they say, no, my suffering is worse. Can you prove which one is suffering more?
Yeah, my toothache is worse than yours.
Yeah, why? It's only because you're more emotionally attached. You feel, my toothache must be bad because it's hurting like hell. Right? But it's not. Actually, suffering is suffering. Right? And if you speak to people around the world, they feel their suffering is valid to them. You might think this is trivial. You might think that's more severe. These are your judgments based upon your understandings. But for the person who's undergoing suffering, the actual cause of the suffering is irrelevant. What is happening is the feeling they're getting. That's real to them. They don't understand what schizophrenia is, what arthritis is. These are just names. What they say is, I'm in pain. They understand that. Yeah. The cause of it is irrelevant to them. They say, I'm suffering because of pain.
Papa Gurinder Singh said in one of the reels,
Yeah, online
Facebook
discourses,
reels,
yes.
online discourses, said that we are only in this world because of karma.
That's right. As I spent that last hour or more saying, there's
Correct.
nothing but karma in this creation. From that point of view, that
Correct.
creates the creation.
Correct, but and you said how we'd agreed that, but you said in between we are forced to. That's what I wanted to ask you to clarify. What?
We're not forced to do anything.
Right.
We think we are. It looks like we are, but we're not forced to do anything. We came here voluntarily. We came here because we wanted to have an experience other than perfect stillness. We wanted to have the experience of duality, of agitation. In Satgurus, all the state of existence there is perfect stillness, harmony, and peace for in countless period of time, let's say. There's no time there, but let's just say countless number of moments. And if you're all powerful, and you can do anything, and you're indestructible, and no harm can come to you, you even as a human being will try it. If I said to you, hey, you know what, there's all these hallucinogenic drugs, you can take them all, have all the highs that everybody talks about, and no harm will come to you, and you'll be back to square one when you finish. You say, okay, I'll do it. There's no consequence. Yeah, you'll do it for the experience. And I say, why do you want to do it? You say, I want to have the experience of it. So when the soul descends into creation as a group, they say they want this drama. They want to be part of a drama because they can. Because there's no consequence to the soul. No destruction. The soul doesn't have to learn anything. It doesn't have to do anything. It becomes a spectator. The soul doesn't suffer because it's just a spectator. The soul then projects the tool of the mind as a character to play one of the parts in the play. And then these photonic or fictional or phantom characters interact with each other. And they have this play. And if those phantom characters believe they're real, and therefore everything they're doing is real and everything that's happening to them, then this makes the drama even more realistic, isn't it? Because no point playing a part in the drama when all along you know it's not real. You're going to be a half-hearted performer, right? But if you believe it's real, because you've created this phantom Jeev, this individual mind that has a character and actually thinks it's alive, actually thinks it's real, actually thinks he's doing all these things, that this is a wonderful experience.
I want to ask another question, just last one
Yes.
at this point. You say about grouping.
Yes.
It's said that grouping is also dependent on karma in terms of what's owed and what's...
Yes, whoever you associate with will be a
in the
finite number of
past.
individuals in this creation.
Yeah, so from that point of view, you are still relating to people you've known in previous lives.
Everybody you meet is of your own kin.
That's it, thank you.
Everyone, every plant, every animal, and every insect. Make no mistake about this. This is not just the humans. Everyone who has a part to play in your life were all your kith and kin back in the origin. That is why the law of karma says, be careful of your dealings with all of these. Do no wrong to them if you can, because there's a consequence. They're of your own kin. Therefore, if you harm your own kin, it affects you. The law of karma is not random. It's not created as a punishment, as people see it. It's actually a natural consequence of your association. It's like your left hand and your right hand are connected. But if your right hand decides to take revenge on the left and starts hacking at it with a knife, and then you wonder, why are you in pain? Why am I having the consequence of it? Because they're connected. But the right hand thinks it's separate because it's on this side and the other one's there. It thinks it's the enemy. So this is the way karma works. It's a natural consequence of the fact that we are all one, but separated into the many. And therefore the collective gets affected. If you harm or cause harm or good in the collective, the entire collective either benefits or is harmed. And therefore there's a natural consequence rebound upon you. This is like a closed vessel, a circle, in which everything is rebounding about in the circle. Yeah, they call it the rebound effect. And that's exactly how karma works. So, but the circle is tight. There's no way out. There's no door. You need a way out. And that's where there's a magical part to this whole system, where somebody can pretend to be unenlightened, come into that realm. We call them a master. They take on a karmic body and they have the same karma as everybody else. They take on this body, but they have a connection with the outside. They say, look, you know what? I know there's no door and you can see no way out. The scriptures tell you there's no way. Because this circle has no beginning, no end. No matter where you go, every point could be a beginning or end. But there is a way out by secret means. Right? And that's what the masters tell you. They say, look, forget about trying to conquer this space. You're never going to conquer it. Just get the hell out of here. Don't worry about the comings and goings. So the idea of spiritual practice is not to get involved with the play, but to detach yourself from the play by attaching yourself to something greater. You cannot also forcibly detach yourself. It won't work. Because the mind says, if I detach myself from this, what do I do now? So the only way it happens is by you attaching to something greater. So then the whole concept of a master, which is a satsang for another time, comes into play. You can now put all your efforts and attachment to something beyond the karmic realms. And by doing so now, you have a means of escape. You have a means to occupy the mind which wants to play its games. But at the same time now, that is meaningful because it's taking you out of the karmic realms. And then you leave the mind behind. So that's the whole point of spiritual practice. The key to this is finding the enlightened one. And you being ready to accept them. And therefore being able to down tools and say, I'm doing whatever you say. Even if you send me to hell, I'll go there. So that's the essence of Sant. Yeah, we've done. Next question then. Yes.
Can the law of cause and effect be proved to a non-believer, whether on an individual or a universal scale?
Quite easily. If I throw a rock at you and you feel pain, right, would you not say that there's a consequence to the rock hitting you? It is quite easy to prove cause and consequence. Yeah, pain and simple. So we see it every day. But sometimes we don't realise it. We're seeing it every day. We're blind. That's the thing.
Thank you. Got a couple of questions regarding the level of karma. Does the recitation of Simran help reduce the intensity of ongoing or current karma, or is it just about rising above its effects in time?
Both. It helps with both, because when you're reciting the Simran, you're distracted from what's going on around you. You cannot be two places at once. So the trick is with the Simran that you get absorbed in the Simran, and then whatever's going on around it happens without you hardly realizing it. It's almost like a faint gesture. And the second thing is the Simran of the Lord, of the true Lord, is a power in itself. And this power has the ability to open the gateways to higher liberation. So two things are being resolved by this one Simran, a very powerful tool that's given by a Holy Master.
Thank you. What can we do to mitigate the effects of karma, and does gaining more spiritual merit also help?
Well, mitigating the effects of karma is not getting involved with it. Distancing yourself from it by not disturbing the karmic system. If you live in the now, as I mentioned before, and you just do things for the now with the guiding principles, the 5 principles just outlined in the discourse, then you are doing the minimum amount of effect in the karmic way that could cause you any harm. And therefore, there's minimum amount of disturbance of the mind. So at that point then, you can start focusing your free mind, because if you're not having a disturbed mind, then you have a bit more free time to think of higher things. If you're constantly stressing and disturbed, you have no time to do spiritual practice. So you need to have that freedom of mind. So by living the now and minimizing your impact on earth, on the system, the karmic system, you are freeing your mind a little bit for higher thoughts. And then of course then with a philosophy behind you as well, adopting the philosophy, then you can do spiritual practice. And by those two things, you're mitigating the effects of karma. You are removing yourself slowly from the karmic system. Yeah, and those are both dependent on grace.
Thank you. I've got a few questions related to the soul now. Once I was listening to an old recording of a Sant discourse where the speaker mentioned that while dragging the soul after death, some yamduts also steal away their good karmas. Is this true?
This only applies to non-initiates. Initiates of a perfectly master have a different exit. But yes, it is possible. For example, some souls here who are incarnating here have been themselves in that system of the astral realm, and have been themselves negative beings, demonic in some way, and now they've progressed here. So they have some karma with the yamduts. So yes, it's all part of the karmic system. It's not something special. It's not going to happen to everybody. It's only where there's a connection between them.
Thank you. What protection and guidance will a holy master offer to our soul through the journey in the lower and then upper realms of existence?
You see, again, by attaching yourself to a power greater than the lower powers you are living in, residing in, automatically affords protection. It's not that the master does anything particular as such. Mere association with a higher power automatically creates a bubble of protection around you. So it's not that they do anything in particular. They don't wave a finger or a magic wand and something happens. It's by associating with that greater power, which is a power greater than the power you're going through, automatically it shields you from the worst of it. And we experience this in many ways. For example, let's say you're entering the astral realm and the demonic beings try to go to you and hassle you. The power of the radiant formula as well, naturally the energy keeps their distance. They will be taunting you from a distance, jumping up and down and demanding attention, but it can't come close. So nothing in particular has happened, but you just carry that energy, that protection of association with a greater power. So that's how it works.
What protection and guidance will a holy master offer to our soul through the journey in the lower and then the upper realms of existence?
Sorry, read that again.
What protection and guidance will a holy master offer to our soul through the journey in the lower and then upper realms of existence?
Yes, I mean, I've already explained this relatively, that the protection is because you associate with that higher power. Automatically there's a protection that comes with that. It's not something that has to be specially arranged. And the guidance part, you see, all the way through this journey, the Master stands with you as a guide because you do not know your way. You have forgotten the way. But the Master is all-knowing. He knows what is to come, how long for, and so on. So the Master then guides you inwardly through this journey, as well as answering your questions, if you have any, about what's going on in the lower life forms, for example, as a human form. So the Master guides you through, just like if you are travelling, I don't know, a new road somewhere, and it's dark, and a man comes with a lamp and says, here, I have a lamp that shows you the safe way. So the Master takes you through the safest route as a guide, because he carries the lamp of wisdom, and he takes you through. Whereas if you are on your own, you'll be stumbling in every direction, and you wouldn't know which way to go. So that way the Master guides you.
Sant says that the mind lives for about 3 million years. The mind builds up karma, whilst the soul has no karma. What happens to the karma built up when the mind dies? Is it going to be attached to the new mind that the soul may pick up later, or what exactly?
Once the soul leaves the realm of the mind becomes dormant, like a machine. What happens when the machine is working and you pull the plug? The machine just turns off. Has the machine died? You could say it's died. Has the machine been destroyed? No. None of these things apply. Yeah, so these are very human interpretations. Once the mind is deactivated, it becomes dormant. Then everything is cancelled. There's no karma, there's nothing, nobody to take account. There's no energy in the system that takes account of what is happening. You know?
Okay, next question relating to the soul. Is karma there for us to learn lessons? If so, where is the lesson integrated? Is it done on the soul level or higher mind level, for example?
Always in the mind. The soul never needs to learn anything. The soul is just a spectator. But for the sake of the mind, yes, the experiences of life are taking you through a journey. And therefore you could say you're learning. It's not the purpose. There's nothing to learn. Because you came from an all-knowing place originally. You came here for an experience. It's just that from our point of view here on earth, we see life as a learning a lesson. For example, if you put your hand on the fire and it burns you, you don't put your hand again. And you say, I've learned something. Similarly, if somebody teaches you how to plant crops, you plant crops so you can feed yourself. Because we have this understanding here, which is due to karma, just events, we attribute a quality and we say we're learning something. There's no learning involved. It's an evolutionary process. And this evolution occurs through experiences in which we react. And therefore we react to those experiences certain ways, and that tapers the next time we react. We react better and better, let's say, until we perfect the reaction. And you could say that's a learning, if you want. But that's not the purpose of it. It's just an experience. We're here to have a drama, to have an experience. And in the middle of it, we're pulled out. It's not like we have done our karma, it's come to a natural end. We're still in the middle of it. If you look at the Sinchit pile, there's massive past karmas to be paid off. But the Master intervenes and pulls us out. Yeah? So there's no end to the karmas.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions around suffering, and I know you touched it on already. Do most truth seekers learn from their karmic suffering?
Well, suffering is one of the greatest teachers, in fact, because it leads to a change in reaction. So from that point of view, you could say yes. Although everything is scripted, certainly one of the most powerful ways to change you or to move you along the timeline of events, let's say, into a more positive frame is suffering. So suffering is a very useful tool, actually. Without suffering, nobody would change. In fact, no one. That's why Jesus said, I have come here for not for the righteous, but for the unrighteous ones. The ones who are in suffering. Because the righteous ones think, I'm perfect, my life is perfect, I'm a good person, I do everything, I have full of ego. They're not suffering. You know? And Jesus similarly said, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to inquire about the kingdom of heaven. Why would a rich man want to inquire about anything? They're not in suffering. So suffering is the best of teachers.
Okay. Can you explain some of the karmic reasons why people suffer from certain debilitating illnesses such as multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's and schizophrenia?
These are just karmic consequences of past lives. So for example, if it involved they had a habit of mentally harassing or torturing individuals, then a form of their karma will come back in a mental form. If they had physical harm, then it'll be physical. If they physically damage the environment, then the environment will cause harm upon them, like a volcano or a tree or an earthquake. So karma is a like for like system, very exacting to the minutest detail. So it's an exact consequence of the manner in which they live their former lives.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions related to being an initiate. As a youngster, I enjoyed fishing. I ate fish as well as any meat being served in my family. There was no sense of doing anything wrong. How does karma likely play out for this type of thing? Is there a difference for me now that I'm a dedicated perfect living master initiate?
You know, masters never look at your deeds when they initiate you. This is another misunderstanding, that you have to be a good person to be initiated. If that were the case, there'll be no initiates. So, because it's impossible, it is just impossible with the drama here to become perfectly good. So, masters look at the soul. Are you fed up being in the lower creation? Are you wanting to go home now? Have you had enough of the drama? The master doesn't look at your deeds. It doesn't look at your habits. It doesn't look at your behavior. When one is initiated, it's because the soul is at a point in which it's starting to ascend back home. It started to feel the pull of going back home. That one is ready. They could be in the middle of anything. They could be a villain, or they could be already a saintly, right? And they get initiated. That's why there are so many colourful figures, good and bad, in Sant, because it's not dependent upon what their deeds are. If that was the case, who would go to the saints if they were judged? This is the realm of judgment. Now, karma already deals with judgment, decide the fates of individuals in its system by good and bad. Masters operate outside of that. They have something called forgiveness, mercy, compassion. You'll never hear karma referred to in that way. There's no such thing as compassion or mercy or forgiveness in karma. It is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, an exact law. Right? So yes, masters are the forgivers, and therefore they're able to pull you out of the karmic system without judging your deeds, because your time is up, the timeline of events. Nothing to do with what you're doing.
Are the effects of karma lightened or made more heavy after initiation from a perfect living master?
Just depends. If you are strong enough to withstand a quicker journey home, then definitely the suffering increases. And a lot of the time, initiates will say, gosh, after I was initiated, all hell broke loose for a couple of years. And it does seem like that. Everything seems to be up in the air. And yes, there's an accelerated payback for initiates than for non-initiates. Because remember, they have to clear the karmic account within a certain time frame. And for others, it's less so. It just depends. It's not mandatory that the master doesn't give you suffering. They just speed you along the journey of timeline, yeah, so that you may have more bunched karmas. And in fact, for those ones who are true devotees, they're paying 6 years of karma previously in one day, the maximum acceleration. But very few can tolerate that.
Thank you. Do you think karma is viewed more or less positively or negatively by most spiritual seekers in Sant?
I would say most people on the planet, whether they're initiates or not, see it as negative. They talk about karma in a negative. They don't think of the positives. But in fact, it has both sides. But it's the negative that bothers them the most. And they don't appreciate the positive. They're ungrateful. So yes, this is the problem.
What actions and thoughts produce the most positive and negative karma?
Being a seeker is the most positive. Seeking earnestly, truly, absolutely, wholeheartedly, with every core of your being, is the best that you can do. The worst is to do the opposite. The worst is to throw yourself into the indulgences of the world wholeheartedly, without care, or selfishly wanting every pleasure for yourself, regardless of the consequence to others. So those are two opposing views.
If destiny is written before we take birth, then what fault of that is ours, when karma has to be paid back, yet we get the blame?
We have no fault. Actually, nothing is our fault. It's just that we, again, with our mind, the way we like to analyze things and play the part of the intellectual, we like to play around with this play in the sense that we discriminate between good and bad, right and wrong, beneficial, non-beneficial, and parts of that is to say that we are responsible, because the moment you point your finger at somebody else, say that they're responsible for doing this to me, then that implies automatically that you're also responsible for what you do to them. And the moment this blame game starts, you take on responsibility for your actions, you're blaming them for theirs. We've entered this game, dangerous game of karma, lena dena, yeah. And for this reason, we get affected. But if we don't look at it that way, we say this is all the Lord's hukam, then the Lord is responsible, then there's no karma.
Thank you. Are humans only subject to karma, or do animals, plants and elements undergo karma too? In other words, is it true that only sentient living beings have karma in this universe, or can planets and suns also have their own karma?
Even planets have their own karma, in the sense that they operate in a slightly different system, but they have their evolutionary karma. You could say that karma, because karma is a created entire karmic creation, not just the living beings. The living beings are the height of it, the glory, the darling of the universe. Living beings are the darlings that inhabit the backdrop of the universe. But all the planets and stars and suns and matter, particles, they are all conscious as well. They all come from consciousness. Nothing but consciousness exists, except they're such at a low level that they're just ticking along almost mindlessly, aimlessly. So we think that they have no karma, but they're going the karma according to their predestined evolutionary journey. Yeah, whereas living forms have this thing of being aware of it. That's the only difference.
What about animals and plants?
They are all aware of what's going on to a certain extent. Humans have the highest awareness because they can actually question and reason. Yes.
Are they sentient? Are planets sentient?
They're not sentient in our understanding of sentient, but they are sentient in the fact that they're made from consciousness. So actually everything is sentient then. But they're such a low level that it's quite okay to refer to them as unconscious or unsentient. Yeah.
Thank you. This is a bit of a paragraph, but it has a question at the end. As it is written, for the perfect master to come down to the level of being human, of a human being, she has to take on some karma to get a human body. Now the world just celebrated Easter. It is the firm belief of all Christians that, unlike other religious leaders, only Jesus the Christ died, rose from the dead, met with the disciples physically, and then ascended into heaven, as it is claimed. Was it due to the karma that Jesus picked up for this special event to be made possible? Please elaborate on the truth about the death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus the Christ.
Let me answer the first part first. Is anything that comes into the karmic realm must have karma to exist here. So even the master cannot come here without karma. So although they're karma-less, they take on the body of a karmic being in order to exist here. So that's why masters have different shapes, sometimes different health problems, different family problems, because they don't somehow have another method of entering into the creation secretly to the others. Because then what example would that be for us? Yeah, oh, so you're okay, you can come here with this magic power around you and nothing affects you, and you're telling us to do all this effort and get out. He said, we can't relate to you, you're a magical god being. So Master said, no, we take a body, so they liberate a soul, liberate somebody, send them to Satgurus, take on their karmic body. The body they choose depends on the most appropriate body for the time that's aligned with wherever they want to be born. They still have to follow which one. They have to follow Karl's law. Karl has perfect domain here. He has every right to create the karmic creation for the entertainment of souls. So masters cannot act outside the system, right? They could, but they won't, right? So they follow the law, because in that way everybody can relate to them. Otherwise, who would relate to them if they could not?
But the fact that they could, doesn't that make them different then?
No, because they don't exercise that power. So could you. When you reach that point, you could do as well, but you don't exercise that power. You're in the karmic system. They do the same as you. There's no difference between a master soul and your soul. You're all of the same ilk. The difference is that they have full awareness up to Satgurus and you do not. So masters come here to share that awareness with you, to help you get back your long lost awareness of the higher truth and withdraw your projection from Satgurus. Because actually in truth, there is only Satgurus. None of the creation exists. It's a projection. It's not real. Nothing is real. Not even the creation itself. All of this is a projection. So you create the creation, you put the souls into it, projections of the souls, and you play this party. You have this party. And when it's all finished, everything's wrapped up and folds back. That's why we have Pralaya and Mahapralaya. The dissolution and the grand dissolution in creation. This is in Santma. How is it possible for creation to be dissolved if it's permanent, if it's real? It can only be dissolved if it's not real, if it's a projection. And how do they describe the withdrawal? They say everything is withdrawn back to the source. And that's what happens with a projector. When you're projecting something out and you would switch off the projector, everything's withdrawn back. So this type of existence occurs in anything from below Satgurus. But then Satgurus itself is also created, but in a different way. So everything is projected from Satgurus, which means it's within Satgurus. There's nothing outside of it. But the levels of consciousnesses that have been divided up into ways that we give them a description. But actually, the souls never left Satgurus. Nobody left anything. We're all still there. But we project our attention. Right? This is a very interesting phenomena. The ability to project attention. And that's one thing that a soul can do. And you can demonstrate this every day, because when you look at say a tree in front of you, and you see only the tree and you don't see anything around you anywhere, it's not that they don't exist, but for you they don't. You've projected your attention, everything revolves around where your attention is. Wherever you place your attention, that becomes your reality, that becomes your now. What about everything else in creation? It doesn't exist for you. Yeah? But when you place your attention there, that's where that thing becomes real. So if you're in Satgurus as a soul, and you project your attention here on the physical earth, and this attention manifests the tree or the person or yourself, everything is manifested from you, within you, it's just a projection. For example, there's nothing on the screen, a blank screen in a cinema. We're sitting there waiting for the movie to start. We just see a white screen. And somebody says to you, you've never seen a movie before, and says, you know what, all these characters are going to be played on this screen. And you go up to think, but this is just a white sheet. How can you have spatial differences here, like 3D, and how can you possibly have all these characters in this thin piece of paper? He said, no, it's a magic. Yeah, it's projected from behind you, and it comes to life. He said, wait and you see, and it makes sense. Then you see the movie start coming. He said, wow, this is amazing. How is it possible that that little bit of light behind me is projecting this entire play? And that's exactly how we are. We all the players are projected from Satgurus into this grand play, including the master, including everything, the whole story, the whole shebang. And it's all played out. And all their scripts have been written, everything's been agreed in advance, everything is played out. And of course, when you are projected there, your attention is there, and your particular character, then you believe that character, because that character has an attention, has a power. The power is illusionary, it's not really alive, but it looks like it's alive because the attention is there, and attention creates life or reality to anything where it's placed upon. Yeah? So now I'm looking at you, you're my reality. I can't see the Buddha statue at the back, but the minute I look at the Buddha statue in your back, suddenly that's my reality, you don't exist. Yeah, I have memory of you, but you don't actually exist because my attention is there. I can simply switch my attention from place to place, and wherever I put my attention, that becomes my reality. So that's exactly what happens with Satgurus. The attention is placed outwards, and it creates. Because the other thing that happens is not that my attention is witnessing something separate to me. I create it as well. This attention has the ability to create instantly. So when I look at something, I think it's there already. So the philosophers argue, are we looking at a tree because the tree is already there? Or are we projecting an image of a tree within us and then we're simply seeing it projected in front of us as a hologram, but it looks real? The actual answer is both occur at the same time. And because both occur at the same time, you can't, there's no gap instant. Yeah? So you can look at it from any point of view. But the fact is that all projections come from a higher place to the lower, and you give energy and life to that projection, it becomes real. And reality is what you're experiencing now. If I say to you, is this life real? You say, sure, hell it is. Why? Because your attention is here. But when I send you off to sleep, and then I ask you in your sleep, what is there reality here? You know, you're sitting in this room and so on. You say, no, I'm flying here with the birds. That's my reality. What are you talking about? So your reality shifts simply by sleeping.
That's true, because I know sometimes when I'm sleeping and I've got up and I know that I've had a dream or something,
Yeah.
I actually think for a few seconds that was real until I realise
it takes a while to recover.
Yeah.
So your reality is dependent upon where your attention is, not where you physically are.
Yeah, true. Okay.
So this is an interesting point. Reality is subjective, it is personal. The actual reality, the highest reality, is back where we came from, the source of the projector. That's the reality. But when we project out into the creation, we make that alive, we evolve ourselves as a participant, because this creative ability is not only to project and to bring to life, but also to unfold the story. It's different from a projector, it has a little bit more power, but it's very similar.
Okay. When it comes to karma, does intention play a bigger part than the actual action or behaviour of the doer?
Absolutely. Intention is everything. In fact, so much so is intention that even if you don't get a chance to do something, let's say you wish harm upon us, you say, I want to kill him, but you never get an opportunity. You will, when it comes to the Dharamrai court of justice in the first realm, that will be counted as a sin. And you'll say, but I didn't actually do anything. He said, but you willed it so. And just because you didn't have the opportunity to do so, it's counted. Your intention means you are the perpetrator. Whereas if something happens, consequently, according to your karma, you have to bop someone in the nose without intending to do so, then that's just karma. You can't be judged for something that's written for you to do, but you can be judged for the 20% of time that you create an intention to do something. Whether you act that intention out or not. That's why Jesus famously said, he said, if you lust after a woman, but do not get her, then as far as the law is concerned, you have committed adultery with her already. Yeah? You didn't do anything. But the mere intention was enough.
Well, you have in your mind, you did.
The fact is that it's the mind that creates everything, because the mind is the source of everything. So whatever the mind portrays, that's where the karma lies, not in the doing. That's why animals don't have karma. They don't create karma, only humans. Because only humans can think, whereas animal acts on instinct. So an animal kills another animal. Where's the karma? There's no karma. It's payback. Because that animal is driven by a non-thinking process. It's driven by an instinct. It's a different process. So the moment you involve thinking, which means intention to act, right, then you create karma. An intention to act is different from instinct. An instinct is a sudden reaction. Like if somebody touches you on the head and you jump and you actually bring your hands up in reaction and you pop them in the nose and cause them to nosebleed. How can anybody accuse you of harm?
True.
It's a reaction. Yeah, but if you go around and turn him and say, I don't like your nose, I'm going to bop you in the nose, it's a very different.
Thank you. Why do we feel that we have so much karma when born into a human form?
Karma, suffering is relative. All beings undergo karma. How much better off are you being human than an animal or a plant? Because at least you have a way out. It's a wrong thinking. In fact, we are very lucky to be born into the human form. It's taken 10 million plus births to get here. We should not waste this lightly. Only human beings have the ability to escape this creation. That is written in the law, karmic law. So we're so fortunate. We should never put down our human form, no matter what condition it's given.
Thank you. Would you recommend never telling anyone what choice they should make in order to prevent you from getting involved in their karmic baggage?
Generally speaking, unless you are very intimately connected with somebody, very close with them, you shouldn't tell people what to do, but you should give them options.
Yeah.
You should give them the weighing and the pros and the cons, you see, and then let them decide. So generally, masters don't directly command anybody to do anything.
Thank you.
You know, you'll even hear Babaji saying, when they say, I can't tell you what to do. I'm just telling you this is the concept.
Yeah.
And you have to make up your own choice. Otherwise, if he commands you to do something, then he's karmically linking himself with you. The consequence of that.
Is it true that karma dictates how much a person can change for the better, regardless of their willpower?
Yes, because karma is everything. Karma rules the events of life here. And in that karmic system, there's a time when a being appears in you, or the seeking starts in you. And as a result of that, being appears in your life, or the seeking starts of you, then that's your freedom journey starting. But none of that is in your hands. Everything is karma.
Thank you. I've got a couple of just general questions. These will probably be brief. I live in Perth, Western Australia, and I'm desperately seeking a genuine, perfect, living Holy Master for further spiritual enlightenment in order to get true fulfillment, peace, love, and gratefulness in life. Can you please be so kind and to point me in the right direction, as there seems to be a lot of disparity regarding the true living Master's lineage. There is that Satsangi group here called Science of Spirituality, but they don't seem to be connected to Master Sant Ishwar Puriji in any way, so I am a little confused.
You see, the best way, you cannot recognize a living master, or even really an enlightened one, just by your own intellect. Because anybody can have that awareness, but they are a karmic being as well, so they're going through their karma. So whatever they may be going through in life could be good or bad, but they could be fully aware. But they're remote from it or detached from it. So it's very difficult to know who is real and who isn't. The best way is to ask within. If you're sincere, you ask the Lord within, please guide me, please show me the truth. And you will be guided one way or another somewhere, by hook or by crook, by what we call a series of coincidences. Yeah, you'll be taken along a particular journey. So don't you look for anything. You just be a seeker of the truth. If you just want that truth becomes a burning passion within you, that everything else will be taken care of, and you'll find the one for you.
Thank you. Do all souls go through the 8.4 million species of life before becoming human?
Not necessarily. It depends on the particular journey that they have chosen. Some never experience the very lowest forms. Others have to go through everything, even go to hell for a while. So no, you don't have to go through every single species. But I would say that for most people, the majority would have to go through most of those species, but not every single one. The one who goes through every single one are the most courageous of visitors. They go through everything, even every version of hell. There's 18 levels of hell, and they have to go through all of that. And believe it or not, there are souls, really remarkable ones, let's say, who have chosen that because they've done it so many times, the normal system, that they want the extra thrill of going to hell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is...
Yeah, you can ask something?
Oh.
Okay, good.
This is my last question now. If attaining a human body is so difficult, as holy masters have proclaimed, then why is it that we have had so many past human lives which we have really wasted? Does that mean our merits are either really immense to have so many human lives, or really bad that we can't make the best use of those lives?
A very intellectual question. I think both are true in the sense that, you see, there are many humans. If you think about only 10% of human forms in this lifetime are going to get initiated or be put onto the path of salvation, that means 90% fail to meet the requirement. And therefore, they've been born human. Now they've got two ways of going. If they live as a human animal, then they'll go back into the Jurassic life to become like the animals. But if they lived as a human being, a noble human being, even if they didn't get Nam, they'll be born human again. So their purpose on this journey, human lives are never wasted. Their purpose is to accumulate that yearning, to accumulate that feeling of disconnection with the whole creation. It may take more than one lifetime for them to disassociate from the all. So by the time they're destined to become a spiritual practitioner, they've already done all the hard work. They've already been through it all. And therefore they don't have that obsession with the life. They're questioning it. But those ones who are in not that state yet, they still got some mileage left in them. They still want to enjoy, want to experience, they want to explore the human form in all its ways before they get fed up and want to start questioning. So for them, yes, they live their human life, sometimes even very nobly, and they have to come back again. But they'll all be born in better circumstances for such individuals. The ones who live as an animal in a human form, they can descend from the human form back into the animal kingdom. Yeah, for a while, and have to go through the merry-go-round before meriting a human form again. And that's usually only because they've either served an enlightened one, or they've been glanced at by an enlightened one, or something associated with the enlightened allows them to come back into human form. That's why the gurus are very particular about not wasting this time as a human form, because you do not know if you're going to get it again. You do not know where you sit in this line of events. So most certainly it's a very rare opportunity, and it should be grasped with both hands fully and embraced, yes.
Thank you. Anyone got any
Any
questions?
questions? You're all tired, bless you. Yes, girl?
Sant Puriji says in one of his videos, podcasts from here, when he blessed some prasad to give out, he said
Yes.
his master was blessing it.
Yes.
He could see the master, but we couldn't.
Yes.
That's one scenario. The other scenario is that there are many Sant Mat lineages
Yes.
where they rely upon a previous master coming to a discourse once a year,
Uh-huh.
for example.
A previous master?
A previous master.
You mean one who's no longer physically in the realm?
Yes.
Okay, so they imagine some being as a phantom being coming in.
Either they're imagining it or that soul is coming back. But
Right.
relate
That doesn't happen.
But relate that to what Sant was saying, Sant Puriji was saying
Uh-huh.
about his master.
Yes. Oh, this is different. When you have a disciple of a living holy master, and they carry that master within them, when the disciple is there, the master is there. But if everybody's passed away and there's no living one, like for example, nobody's alive now from the time of Guru Nanak. So there's no way that Guru Nanak would manifest here anywhere or come or support anyone, because there's no connection with him anymore. The last of the lineage, the people who lived at his time, are all gone. So during the lifetime of a master, his disciple, yes, can manifest the master within. But, that's only whilst they're alive. The moment they've passed away, then that's not possible. It's simply not possible. You have to have a connection. That's the law. Yeah, so if they're saying that they're manifesting a long lost master from 200 years ago, that's imaginative and wishful thinking. And I guess in the absence of the truth, it's okay for them if they believe that. But they will find that nothing comes of this. There's no benefit. So eventually they get fed up and move on. So there's different paths, different journeys, and people progress according to their need, according to where their karma is placed. So if they have a karma with a particular group, they have to go through the motions for a while, and then eventually they come across a perfect living master. But only coming across a perfect living master can take you home. There's no other way at all. And the only way to find a perfect living master is to become a truth seeker within. Even just inquiring in an earnest way within, and you don't know what it is. You don't even know about the path. But you just say, I just want the truth. I want out. I really want to know. I really want. The religions don't appeal to you. The ceremonies don't appeal to you. You somehow distance yourself from them. They don't feel they satisfy any longer. Now you're a true seeker because you want the truth irrespective of cultural systems or rituals or ceremonies. You don't want to be part of the whole show. You actually want to know. And you'd be surprised how few individuals there are in the world like that. Most people go into the religions and they're quite happy to be part of the club. Join the club and take part in it because they feel kinship, like-minded individuals. And on the surface of it, they look very devoted, but they're not devoted to the truth. They're devoted to their club. To the culture of it all. None of those people want the truth. If they become a genuine truth seeker, really, no matter what, then they will leave that system. They'll say, okay, it's interesting, but I don't feel the answers here. I'm no longer satisfied here. And they're pulled out of it and they search somewhere else. Okay, so we've had a long session, so I hope you enjoy your much earned lunch, and hopefully to see you again next month. God bless.
So dehi paje har ki sev bhajo gobind phul mat ja मानस जानम का एही ला